6, 2019 school board meeting. I'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, I need my computer.
Revisions. Summary of non-public actions from January 23rd, 2019. Mrs. Harrison made a motion to approve the non-public minutes of January 9th, 2019. Mrs. McDonald second. Motion carried 4-0. Any correspondence?
Nope.
That'll bring us to superintendent's comments.
So the first item is to prepare for deliberative on Saturday, and I know our moderator is here, and we have the warrant articles are linked in the agenda, and so I think we should just make sure that everybody knows what the moving parts are and who's doing what for Saturday. You're better, you know more about this step than I do, so I'll just
All right.
let you lead us through.
Well,
Yeah, pack a lunch, maybe dinner.
No.
Article 1 is going to be presented by Cindy Couture of the Budget Committee. We're going to be talking points afterwards. Article 2, which is the LEA contract, and that will be Tina. Article 3 and Article 4 I'll be speaking on. Article 5 I'll be speaking on. And Article 6, I was going to ask Liz to speak on it.
What's that?
It's the Phil Martin thing.
Okay.
Only because you had brought it up. And then Article 7, the petition article, I'll speak on that.
You will?
I will, yes. So John, I have like 2 questions on that article, and if I'm not mistaken, I can have you read the names of the people who signed the petition.
Sure.
Okay, and can you have them stand if they're in the audience?
Sure.
Okay.
That's fine.
Right.
Petition warrant articles will change just like any other warrant article by
Yeah.
amendment. Right?
Yep.
Great.
Will the petitioner be asked to read the petition? Okay,
She will, correct, or he will?
that's what
Um,
happened at town.
I'll read the article and he can speak.
But they
to it
speak,
first.
right.
Yes.
Yep.
For that matter, you could have him read the petition.
I think that's what they did
Yeah,
at
if you
town
want.
deliberative.
No,
No.
the moderator
He read
read the
it and then
article,
they
then they
explained
came
it.
and spoke on it.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, what they did at the town meeting this past Saturday is the moderators read the article,
Yeah.
then the petitioner came and spoke of it.
Yeah, and there were hundreds or many petitioners. Did you want me to read the names of all the petitioners? Is that what you said?
Mine, there was like 30, were there not? Or there,
On the ones at the town?
no, on the school one. When I saw it, I think it's
I haven't
about,
seen it.
yeah, I think it's about 30 signatures.
So I can read them all.
I'll send that over to you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And do you have the author of the petition? Out of curiosity?
I've got this, that's all I've got.
Okay. You'll have that though at
I'll
deliberative.
send it to you tonight.
That's fine.
You have the author of it?
Yes. Do you want to know who it is?
Sure.
Kerry Douglas.
There it is.
Carrie, okay. And you're gonna speak to it and then you'll introduce Carrie.
Well, the way they did it on Saturday was the moderator read the article,
Yeah.
and a person came and spoke.
Yeah, that was
Of it.
the petitioner.
Right. And then I would comment afterwards on it.
Okay, fine. So you want Carrie to speak to the article and then
Yep.
you'll rebut essentially. Okay, gotcha. So it's not you, it's Carrie. Carrie,
Douglas.
Kerry Douglas.
Does she know that she's expected to speak to the article?
Should be there anyway.
She was there last week too. Okay.
Can I just ask why would we read the names?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why, I mean,
Just so the public can know who
but could
signed
we
the
just,
petition.
I mean, it's posted, could we just say 25?
It's not posted though, is it?
Yes,
I
it
looked
is.
at it.
No.
It's posted on the, I don't know. I don't know if that's, is it necessary? That'd be my question.
Well, I think we have quite a few educators there. So the educators, I think, have the right to find out like who signed it and if they're there to support the article.
I just don't like.
You know what we could do is I'll do the standard procedure, then you could request that you read the name of
Okay.
the article.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, just a couple of points on what's there. So we've been in contact with Attorney Elwell, and I want to draw us back to Article
Sorry about the one.
He actually had a comment on Article 5. So apparently, whoever you ask at DRA, you get differing opinions. So in the past, we've always said to raise and appropriate the sum of up to $100,000. So, if there's only $78,000 left over, we could deposit that amount. He said the way this is worded is you have to deposit 100,000 or zero. So if you don't have at least 100,000, you can't deposit less than that. And he's going to recommend that we amend that to say up to, even though DRA took that language out because he said he disagrees with that ruling. So I just wanted us to be ready for that. And
Now, can I do that? Or do I need to go down and like change the whole thing and then hand it to you?
You've got to change it formally, but you can do it wherever you like.
Okay, so I do have to.
You got to propose an amendment,
Yeah.
write it down, we'll
Yeah.
read it, go through the motions.
It's just going to be adding that word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
And he said, unless we were 100% confident that we'll have well over that amount. But I think it's better to be clear with the motion and say whatever, well, up to 100,000. All right. So there was that one. And his other point, and I think we're going to get to this, is in Article 6. We haven't voted on it yet. And so when is that vote? Are we doing that tonight?
No, it has to be after deliberative.
After deliberative. Okay.
It's
Because
a-
right now it says not / recommended.
Right.
And so he said it just seems unclear and
It's a non-monetary article. He
Right.
said the board could vote their recommendation after deliberative because it's already been posted, or they can remove it.
The question's going to come up, why is it not recommended? You can discuss why and then
Yep.
we can change.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep, so those were his 2 points. And he'll be there at 9:30 if the board had questions. He'll be there to help you.
And Article 1, we have to, I know the number's going to change.
That'll be amended by a board member.
And Corey, do you want to speak to Article 1 and what we're thinking for,
For the operating budget?
yes?
So we do have the draft agreement with First Student. So based on those rates, which aren't going to change at this point, I went through and recalculated the regular daily transportation, was able to reduce the budget by $15,590, which will bring us within about $8,200 of default. So that'll have to be a motion as well on Saturday morning.
A motion or just an amendment? That'd be an amendment, right?
Yeah.
It's a
No.
motion,
Like
yeah.
make a motion to amend the article,
Yeah.
if you like, get it seconded, and talk about it.
I'll have it all written out for them.
Just have it written up.
Yep, I'll have it all written up for them.
So you
Yep,
know the-
Well, I don't have to like write anything down, just hand it to them
take care of it.
and make sure I sign it.
Thanks.
Make sure you sign it. Yep.
So the articles are pretty much unchanged since you mailed to me the last deck? Okay, good.
What you have is what was posted.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. You've taken out the monetary verbiage.
I did. I did.
It's so tough to listen to read 1,600,000. That's great. Okay. I'm good. You're good.
Excellent. Yep, we're all set.
All right. See you on Saturday.
See you Saturday morning.
All right.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
So the other piece under deliberative is the presentation. I want to make sure that we know exactly what we have. So we have a presentation that we've worked on relative to Article 2. And I don't know, Ryan, do you want to go through it with the board, or I think it's shared with the board. I don't know how exactly you want to.
Hold on one
Is it on
second.
it's not on the team.
It's not linked.
Okay.
So I could project it and we could walk through it.
I wouldn't mind having the feedback of the board and
Or we could add a link in and people can get feedback. We can go one
Yeah.
of two ways.
Yeah.
I'm fine looking at it on the computer if everybody else is.
No, we're all here right now. I mean,
All right, Mary, can
if we can, might as well just go
see if I
through it.
can get it to project here.
I have the thing here.
Yeah.
You know.
That's not it.
Adapter on it.
Okay, I thought I had this.
Yeah, there's an adapter on it.
Oh, you put the adapter on it. I gotcha.
would be 40, right?
Google Drive. It was the first document on there next to the agenda.
Oh, just regulars. Now, how do I, does anybody know the answer to that?
Team drives.
That's 25.
Is it on? I think it's input.
Oh, interesting.
See what they- Menu and input or something like
Is it a
that.
display button?
So 49, 24.
15, I assume.
What's gonna go
Just the
down?
agenda for me.
Right.
And then
So-
there's, I don't know how, I don't know, quick
So
access.
849, but this one's 824.
I don't know, but I looked at it before already.
We can get Netflix.
So I don't know.
Do you have an input? on it?
I can send
There
you
you go.
No, it's not yours, right?
I think it's, I'm not sure if it's components. I forget what it is.
That's interesting.
That's the 8,000. What's the difference? General.
Yeah, it's not when I see the team drive, but when I see my drive, I see it.
Maybe it's, oh, wait a minute.
It's not the team drive.
What else is up
Share.
there?
Oh, well, now we have a rainbow. That's improving.
PCN
Share,
down the bottom.
Team Brian and three
Oh.
others.
PCN.
So
I'll
let's.
just click on that.
Walk past it. You're like one of my kids with a remote.
Oh, you're not on it.
Oh. Trust me, this is Claudia. Help.
Hey, Jack.
I can invite you.
Get what you can add us, but it may probably will say.
Maybe HDMI one.
Oh, I thought I
Did you add
started
it on
there.
that
I
already?
thought I started with that, but we'll try it one more time.
I don't like it. Stupid.
Oh,
Okay.
We want them to hooked up, so.
oh, there's Liz on.
Hmm.
There's Liz on the school board. So.
All right. So let me make the link. Michelle, I'm going to leave it connected if you can
Okay.
make it go.
So Tara
One
sending.
of the HDMI's, it's gonna be one of them.
No, I can't get in. So just shut it off.
I didn't.
What? You got it now? Liz, I just shared the link with you.
I have it.
Is
It's
it-
lovely.
Is that to the PowerPoint? You have it up? Okay, so you have it.
I have it.
I just got it.
We
from
have it. Here's Rob. It's fun that we can see everybody on their little heads bobbing up and down.
What?
That's where everybody is.
Oh.
See? You can see where everybody's looking. I was working on this today, and Mike and Corey and Holly were all working on it at the same time in the SAU office. So we all see little circles bouncing around at different parts. It was really funny.
She can do this when
I
you.
wanted to. I was looking for like a wave button. or
Where's it
something.
sent to?
Hmm?
Where was it sent to?
It's.
If you click it, I just livened that up. So right,
Kids, when they're typing, I
Oop,
type.
not that
things,
link.
you know, they're
Sorry.
pointing at
one under it
Facebook.
that says deliberative.
Mrs. McDonald said, "What are you doing?
good
Why aren't you
question.
typing?" I can't get this to
I
work.
assume so.
All right, I apologize. I was hoping to display so that we could have the public
So
also
pretty.
follow along. But if we just start at the beginning, so slide,
I can't get this to work.
Brian, do you see it?
I just see a line.
The remote? Oh, let me share it with you. It worked with these two. So.
There it
he's
is.
got it.
I got it now.
It came
Oh,
up.
you have
Thank
it
you.
now. Okay.
Yep. So slide 1 is just the intro. This is Article 2 on the LEA collective bargaining. Slide 2 is the negotiation team, so it points out who was on the LEA team. And slide 3 points out who was on the side for the board, on the team for the board. 4 really talks about 2 overarching goals, right? So we want to attract and retain excellent teachers in the district. And then as our first and primary goal, and the second goal is to make a change to a consumer-driven healthcare plan. So coming back to goal 1, we get into the first graphic, which is really showing 3 key areas. And I like the use of the key because they sort of track their way through. So the most costly thing is maintaining a competitive salary schedule. And the second most costly is restoring steps that were missed from 2012 to 2014. And then at the top, increasing the longevity payments for our most experienced teachers. I'm going to pause on that one to see if anybody has reactions to the way it's laid out.
Is that, I when I created the slide, I laid it out, in my mind, I laid it out as, broad and then a smaller group and then a smaller group. But I didn't realize too that that was the way, it was also an expense.
That's right.
Is that right? Okay. Okay.
All right. So then we start to break it down. And so you can see key number 1 links over to maintaining the competitive salary scale. So we looked at our peer cohort, which was established by the board this year, which involved location, other schools that were in our area, similar size and similar achievement levels. So that's how we established that group. We then have the next chart, which basically shows 3 talking points in there, right? So it's the Bachelor 1, the Master's 7, and the Master's plus 30, step 15. And so Tina's done a nice job of highlighting where Litchfield falls in that list. So you can see it pretty clearly. I just want to pause on that and see if anybody had any thoughts or comments. I'm doing this, so you're doing it on Saturday. So I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know
okay.
if
I'm listening, but I'm learning what.
You want me to do it, or do you want to
No, you go ahead. I've been going through it in my head, but it's nice to hear your
interpretation of it?
interpretation, like the pyramid thing. I was going in a completely different direction, so that's good.
All right,
This
so-
is this is new salary, but compared to current salary of cohort.
This is
Correct?
this is current salary. So if
Current
we were to say in year 1 of the contract, what would these adjust? And actually, there are no changes in the first year, so it would look exactly like this. And you have to assume in the first year that other salaries will increase as other collective bargaining agreements get settled. So this is really comparing current situation. Where do we sit?
Okay.
And then in year 2, there's a 2% increase, and in year 3, a 2% increase. So our numbers will go up, but we could also assume others are going to go up also.
Right.
Yeah. So really, it's
So the next slide, and this is new, what
Yeah.
we inserted today, the salary schedule, because our sense is that when we talk about steps and lanes and tracks, and that's not always common understanding of what it means. So this is the 2019-2020 salary schedule. So it's next year's proposed salary schedule, which is identical to this year's because there are no changes in it, right? So, but now we can point out to people that there are basically these 6 lanes that you sort of work your way down, or 6 tracks, and then there are 15 steps that are laid out.
right. And then I kind of flip it because when I think of steps, I think of going up because you're going, every year that you teach in our district, you're going up a step in my head anyway. So I kind of take this chart and flip it upside down on the next slide. So just to say, what is a step? So our steps start on step 1 at 39,303, and they go up. And every year that you work in our district, you go up a step. Is that, that's just kind of this is how it works. And then the red, white, the blue and red and yellow are the different tracks or different sets of stairs that you could, or I like the word lanes, like you said, for going up the steps.
And it's possible for a person to gain a step because they have a year of experience, and also to change a lane because they earn an advanced degree or accumulate a certain number of credits. So you can do laterals within that as you make your steps. So some steps can be bigger if it's earned by education. So the next step is saying, look, we really need to stay competitive. So in year 1, the salary, the proposal or the settlement will have a salary step for everybody. They'll make a step for being here another year, but there will not be a cost of living increase made to those steps. So they stay the same. So that's why we can project that next year's salary schedule is equal to this year's, because there are no adjustments made to it. In year 2, there's a 2% cost of living made. So people would make a step, plus that step would be increased by 2%, and the same thing in year 3. But I think now that they've seen the salary schedule, that makes more sense. Those numbers will increase, and you can explain that as you go, right? All right, so then the next slide gets into the current scenario, and this is back to key point number 2. So if you notice, the key went from key 1 to key 2.
Should
I think we need
I
to,
need a title there.
yes,
Okay.
whatever the goal is of
Yeah.
that. And so here we're showing that a Litchfield teacher on step 7 who's making $48,291, but was hired at step 1, so they've climbed up to step 7. It actually has taken them 10 years to get to step 7 because there were these years, 2012, 2013, 2014, where they did not receive a step. And so now they're on step 7 with the 10 years of experience. So it's an important point that that person, you have them placed right on step 7 on their way up there. So it's like
I counted the steps.
showing right where they are, which is good. Because the next slide shows why that's problematic. The next slide shows that there's a wage gap with an existing staff member and a new hire. So here you can see our person on that step 7. And if we brought somebody in with the same 10 years of actual teaching experience from another district, we would be placing them next year on step 11. Right? We would say you have 10 years, you're going to go on step 11. So your salary as a brand new person to Litchfield is $52,784 by the grid that we already showed. Our employee is going to go from 7 to 8. So they're going to go from their salary on the other slide to $49,799. And therefore, there's a wage gap for the same experience of $2,985.
Yeah, someone who's been teaching in our district for the entire time.
Right. The person they're asking, where's the copier?
Mhm.
You know, they're asking for help from the person and they're making almost a $3,000 higher salary, right? So that's the problem that we're trying to get after with the makeup steps. And this slide, I think, does a really good job. So Tina, one point here.
Yeah.
When we ran it through and talked the numbers to compare apples to apples, we projected into next year. So that's why the person
Oh,
goes
okay.
from 7 to 8.
Yeah.
Right. And that gap is a little bit less. You had it at like $4,000, but that assumed they stayed without a step, which they're not. They're going to
Okay.
gain that step.
Right.
So that's why it's off a little bit
Okay,
from what you
that
saw.
makes
But
sense. Nope.
I want you to make sure you understand
Nope, that's
they're
perfect.
still behind that person by a couple of steps, right?
Mhm.
So then the next slide shows it further, that if a teacher is in Litchfield on step 8, making that 49.7. So say there's somebody saying, do I return back to Litchfield next year? What will I make? If I'm on 7 and there's no longevity or there's no step makeup, I'm going to make the 49,799 next year. But if I go to another district like Bow, we pulled
Mhm.
Bow as a reasonable commute, good school district.
And I pulled it too because on that chart, the peer cohort chart, we're right there. We're right, level with in the bachelor's column. We pay a similar salary. They're a little bit higher.
So the superintendent in Bow says, oh, you have 10 years experience in Litchfield. We're going to bring you in at step 11. Our step 11 is $56,392. So the person is saying I could stay in Litchfield and make 49.7, 49.8, or I can go to Bow for 56.3. And so they could receive a $6,593 increase for leaving the district, taking all the knowledge of our programs, our community, our students to another district and getting a $6,500 raise to do so.
I would just make sure you're clear as far as that teacher in step 8.
Yeah.
Is someone who's missed some steps. That's why they're in step 8. So they actually should be in step 11. That's why they're going to go to Bow in step 11.
Right. It's the same
Right.
guy.
Right. But just, I would
Yeah,
make sure you
I agree with that.
just focus
Yeah.
on that. Because right now you're looking, like if someone just looked at the slide, they say, okay, you're at step 8 in Litchfield, they go to step
Okay.
11.
Yep.
Just to make sure you're clear that that teacher has missed 3 steps.
All right.
You might even,
We
I
will
don't know if you
name
can put in
him.
parentheses, even on the 49,000, 3 steps missed or
Mhm.
or
Well,
at least just speak of it.
And,
that's all.
and it could be that if the contract's not supported,
Mhm.
right, this is the scenario so the
Right.
makeup steps don't come into play because we're trying to have the public understand why makeup steps are
Yeah.
needed.
That's
And here's
Yeah.
here's why it's necessary because that person, I mean, really, if you're looking at a $6,500 swing in salary, it would be pretty obvious to make that leap.
More than 10%. I mean, it's significant.
All right. Next slide goes to key point number 3. So we'll
I'll copy
retitle.
that.
Well, this actually says increase longevity stipend. So basically, the current scenario is you hit step 15, that's the top of the salary scale, and then you receive a longevity stipend of $1,500 in years 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. if you satisfy some other requirement, having been in Litchfield for a period of time, et cetera. And we're proposing to increase that from 1,500 to 2,500. And then once you hit 20 years with the district, you would increase that from 2,500 to 3,500. So those $2 amounts have gone up. First time, I think it's the first time there's been an adjustment to those, unless somebody knows otherwise. And then the piece that we added in, I said to Holly, so if we took our most senior staff member, what step would they be on? And they would be on the mythical step of 36. And the reason we put that in, because we stop at 15. So if somebody says, well, what's the value of longevity? You know, you can't have somebody with 36 years on the same salary as, somebody else who's at 15. And so it does recognize that there's that longevity piece to help and support them for having that amount of institutional knowledge. So that's why we put that in. There is a mythical 36 if people had kept climbing the stairs. Next slide really talks to brain drain. I mean, what do we lose when somebody leaves the district? And so I think it's really a good job of capturing. There's a lot of work that we put into people. We're in the people business, and we've trained people, supported people, professional development, mentoring, college credits that they've taken that we've reimbursed, their personal materials that they brought into the classroom, the relationships they built, students, colleagues, parents, admin, knowledge of the curriculum, programs, materials, organizational knowledge, all of that goes out the door when somebody goes to another district. And we bring somebody in who we then have to start that process all over again.
And you also lose someone who has an investment possibly in the community.
Right.
Now you're getting someone new that probably doesn't.
All right, so the next slide, let me pause there. Are we good on goal 1 and the way that story is being told?
I'm comfortable with it.
Yes.
You guys, you have anything to add
I
or?
just like Brian's thing, adding making it obvious that person missed those steps.
Okay.
So goal 2 is better use of healthcare dollars with a shift to consumer-driven plan. Here we try to do a green versus yellow breakdown, and we chose not to get into yellow with choice, yellow without choice. We're trying to keep it really simple and just saying green to yellow, right? And you can see the cost of the plan, the difference in deductible, and those are what the employee would realize. So there's currently no deductible. It would be $1,000 deductible for the employee on the yellow.
What plan are most teachers going to take?
They're going to take yellow with choice.
And I think that's what ought to be in there for numbers.
Those are the yellow with choice numbers.
Okay.
This is?
Yep. We just called it yellow, but we use the choice because actually I was just sitting next to an HR person in a training today that has it, and they said 98% of their employees take yellow with choice. So
All right. I just added with choice.
Yep.
Isn't the employer number higher? That was 93.
for single, I believe it's 89. I got that from Holly.
Okay.
But we'll do a double check to
With-
make sure.
It's the with and without. With choice, it's 89. Without choice, it's 93%. We pay more because we want more people to take the without choice. Right?
Without choice.
Right.
But I thought currently the majority of the people were 85%. 85-15.
For green?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know that.
Isn't
8317, I believe.
In the contract, it says, you think there's different amounts for different people?
Well, for family, it depends what plan you're taking.
Right.
The green, the red.
Yeah, this is for the
And
single.
this is just for an individual plan right
Yeah.
here, right?
this is a single plan?
Not the majority of them
Single
family.
benefit components.
Right.
We'll double check those numbers to make
Yeah.
sure. I'm assuming we're just comparing single to single. I mean, it can get very complicated when you, now let's
Right.
compare two-person to two-person, family to family. With
I think
choice,
just
without
if you're doing a
choice.
single to single, I mean, at least you're giving a comparison, so.
I think the percentages are single. And then family is a different percentage, if I remember correctly,
On yellow or on green?
on
You're
either
talking-
one. I think the percentage shifts depending on whether it's,
I don't know. I think that's, so here it is. District shall offer. So currently, red was 85 employee, was 85 district, 15 employee, 82 employer, 18 employee for the green plan. And then you were looking for the,
There's only a couple of people taking red, correct? If
Yeah.
any.
like 2, I think.
So the majority of them are taking green at 82%,
Right.
82-18.
And then I have the TA right here. I wish you guys could see my cool slides. All right. So yellow with choice fund. It's single. It doesn't matter. There's no differentiation between single spouse or family. It's 89.11 and 93.7 for the yellow without choice. Yeah.
The extra payment for without choice is not because we want people to take it. It's just that that's a more costly, they're exposed at a higher deductible.
So we
The
compensate them.
deductibles are doubled, so we're
Okay.
compensating a portion of that because they're exposed at a higher amount.
Okay. Thank you for leaving.
But I think
Cost to the member, that's an annual cost? Is that what they're paying out of their paychecks?
For the premiums.
The
So that doesn't
premiums.
include the extra money out of pocket that they pay for the
Right.
deductible and the 20% of it,
So
everything. else.
currently they're paying $1,790 currently, and then it's going to be 1,008 plus really the deductible
that's
if
correct.
they use it.
Correct, if they get there.
All right, so, and notice that the copay goes from $30 to $0 because the deductible comes into play. So, you're paying for those office visits because of the deductible, so it's another shift. All right, good on that slide?
My other question was on the green plan. Do they, because they don't have a deductible, so they pay the copay and they always only pay the copay?
Correct.
So on the yellow, they don't pay a copay, but they pay up to the deductible and then it's 20%, right? And the insurance covers 80% of most things and then they pay a 20%
Up to the
up to
second
the
tier of the, right.
out-of-pocket maximum. Is there any point in the green plan where they pay the 20% of, it's just always just a copay?
Right.
Okay, so labs, doctors, exams, that's all covered under copays. Okay,
So that's a major shift in thinking,
right.
right? And a major shift in the cost.
Mm-hmm. Good, okay. So,
Even when you look at the slide, it looks like the member made out because of that reduction of like $790. But you are exposed at that much higher level,
Yeah.
potentially. It all depends on how you manage the dollars.
Mhm.
But I think the public who's on a deductible plan will understand that.
Yeah.
It's harder for our teachers to understand it because it's new.
Mhm.
And so it's going to take a lot of education for us. So the next slide. So I think what you're doing with the bubbles on this one is just sort of key points that weren't caught in that. So, lower rates over time. So as it shifts consumers' behaviors relative to the use of healthcare dollars, the rates ought to decline. We can't put a dollar amount on it. We can't guarantee it. You never know what's going to happen, but typically that's what's seen. School care estimates that 68% of the districts and towns are already on yellow. So we're in a very small chunk of the folks that are left on the green and red plan. So that's going to continue to swing, I think, toward more and more in the yellow. Orange suite. We'll avoid the Cadillac tax in 2022, which was a key thing for the district. And I think we have to emphasize that.
Yeah, at some point there was an estimate of how much we would owe at today's rates and with the green plan, what we would owe if we still had the same members and group, and what we would owe in the Cadillac tax. Because that's potentially
A lot of money.
tens of thousands, right?
And, yes, and it was all on the district.
All on the
So
district.
that's another piece the public needs to understand, that we're avoiding that. And there's a lot of question about whether the Cadillac tax will be pushed out.
Mhm.
I mean, who knows what's going to happen in Congress? I won't even pretend to predict that. But the point is, it's in the law now, and we're avoiding it by making the shift. So that's critical. There are incentives for healthy lifestyle choices already, but they continue under the plan. So it's, I think one of the things HR, Holly in particular, is doing is really pushing what those healthy incentives are. And so that push will help with the change in behavior also. And just better control over healthcare dollars, right? The employee gets better control over that. The employer does too. So the next slide shows major cost items. So year one, those are the actual dollar amounts right out of the warrant in year 1, 2, and 3. And in year one, it's the step, it's the makeup steps, it's the longevity increase, and it's the switch to the yellow plan. So when you take those 4 major things and mix them together, you end up with that $394,000 cost item. And then it declines over time because in year 2, it's the step with a 2% cost of living increase, but you've already taken care of the other switches, and we can't predict the healthcare items.
Right.
And in year 3, it's the step and 2%.
So those are hard numbers. Those aren't estimates at this point. that
Those are actually in the warrant. So
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's based on the teachers you have now and the salaries they're making now.
Right. But I thought in the
They're
warrant,
all-
are they listed as estimated this amount for the years 2 and 3?
Yeah, because you don't know what your staffing level is.
Right.
You don't know what elections are going to be. And then years 2 and 3 are really
Right.
even more estimate
Right.
because
Because you don't know what's
really
gonna
don't
happen with
know 2
insurance.
years out.
Right. So can we put estimate, year 2 estimate, year 3 estimate, or? That's what I was,
we certainly can. Yeah.
You can, but that's what's on the
To
warrant.
clarify.
And it's not on the warrant, it's an estimate. It's on the warrant.
it's not.
It's our duty to warn the public that this is what we're projecting.
Okay. So we this is a hard number then. And
I think for consistency, to
Okay.
have the same number makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
But we can certainly explain it that these are
sure. Our best guess.
best guess estimates. Yeah. Good on that slide?
Yep.
All right. So the next one, new contract language. So a couple of things, and you spend so much time talking about healthcare and money that you forget there's some other good things that came out of it. So school opening date, basically the students may begin up to 5 days before Labor Day. So that's a shift in our current language. So that would allow us to start before Labor Day, although you should know there's a bill in the House to require all schools to start after Labor Day. And so our hard gained language
Yeah.
may go out the window. if
Short-lived
the
win.
Legislature votes. So we'll see. I'd like to think that local control will rule the day and they'll see the wisdom to leaving us alone, but we'll see.
I can't see them mandating a start date. I just don't.
The second bullet point over is on a defined workday. So we did gain language that would ensure that teachers were in school before and after students so that we can better make sure that we have a handle on that workday. And there's language for a review of all co-curriculars and stipends. So it's really reviewing what the co-curricular mix is. So a committee can determine that. The next item went from a coffee cup to a paw print.
Yeah, I changed it. The coffee cup didn't make any sense.
Kept me awake. So now it's to increase co-curricular stipend pool by 2% in years 2 and 3.
See, it's a team cougar thing for the stipends.
High five.
Yeah.
And
Mascot.
more flexibility of instructional days versus non-instructional. Now, Holly and I we weren't sure what that meant.
Okay. Our current contract spells out 180 student days, I think, or is it and then 6 professional development days. The new contract will just say 186 work days, which gives us a little more flexibility in how that time is used. Does that make sense?
Yep, I see what you're.
Okay.
So at the end of the year, we could have a 7th or an 8th instructional day for the teachers?
The new language, I think, says no more than 180 instructional days for students.
Would it be clearer to state that?
What's that?
Would it be clearer to state that? Old language, 180 instructional, 180 or 6 instructional.
No, because that's the way it's always been. So,
But I mean, just state the language changed in this way.
but if it's what you're saying, then it gives you the flexibility at the end of the
Does
year.
it
If
give
there's
us that
one instructional day short, if you're at 179, then the teachers will still be required for 7 instructional days.
Okay, I'm trying to find that language.
Because in the past, they wouldn't do that.
Right.
So if we have the ability to stop school early at 178 days because of snow,
We had the hours.
and if we have the hours, then the teachers are still responsible only for 180 days of instructional and 6 PD days.
Okay. Teachers will be compensated for an instructional work for a 186-day work year, according to the negotiated schedules. That's all it says. It doesn't say anything about student days versus not student days.
So that's something we tried to get in the past. That's good.
Now that
Thank you.
now that I know what you're referencing with it, because I really wasn't
Yeah.
sure where you were headed.
Yeah.
So let me,
You want to take a
yeah,
Okay. Do you
I
wanna
want to
see
go through
it,
it with Holly and make sure. You want to see it, Brian?
No, I have a copy of it. I just didn't have it with me.
The only thing I'd say, I think it would be clear if it just said more flexibility in instructional days or in school year rather than that versus. I think that just then leads to a discussion.
I want to read it again and review it with Holly and make sure that she and I have the same understanding of it. But, I was thinking of more flexibility with the 186 days, right? So to me, the teachers are working the 186, but
Mhm.
there's a little more flexibility on how that can look. Is there a 6th point? I feel like those cogs are hanging out there, but I don't
I
know
was
what.
looking for one. I need to go through the language changes and see what else. We have the compensating teachers for their using their planning time to to fill in for another teacher. We have some other things that we can put in there. So yes, I will have a 6th point because I like even numbers and it lines up correctly.
Holly and I were trying to figure out what the 6th one was and we couldn't figure it
Oh,
out.
no, I'm still working on that one.
All right.
All right.
And so the next slide is really kind of an appeal to the public, just how much we invest in our teachers currently.
The 6th slide can be just happy teachers.
Yay!
And how much our teachers invest back in Litchfield. I mean, what is it that they do? And there's really a tremendous amount of work in the community that's done. And so I like the comparison on this.
Great.
And then the last one is a quote from Benjamin Franklin.
Yep, I'll just keep that up behind so while people ask questions and make comments. And then the others are all the clip art that I used, but those are going to come out. I'll delete those when I'm done using clip art.
Any other thoughts or feedback from the board? I wish we could have shown the public tonight, but that's okay.
Well, can we get this?
Joe's presentation.
I mean, it's a few days away, but just get up on the website.
We certainly can.
That way anybody who's at home right now who would like to see it, what we're talking about, will be able to see it.
Sure.
Good. Yeah, I think it's good.
So there were a few other slides that were requested to go along with some of the other warrant articles. Should they be added into this? So, I mean, this is titled Article 2. It's really all about Article 2.
Right.
I'm just wondering if we shouldn't add slides into this one rather than have a competing.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Just
Okay.
add some more in the template.
So we have some, it's not ready to view tonight, but
Oh, the ones we talked about.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you have paper copies, right?
I do.
So we can speak to it, and then I just didn't know where to put it. I was like, okay, it can get very confusing in the middle of a meeting, switching from presentation to presentation. So we'll just,
Yeah, if we just have it all in one place, then we can just go right down one. Right? I
okay.
assume so. You can use your clip art too there, Brian.
Do what?
You can add your little clip arts. It's a pie,
Baby, so great.
coffee cup.
Bringing back the coffee cup.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, so that's what we have for deliberative. If there are other things or feedback or comments.
I'd like to know if we can have Jared speak so we can go back to senior night tonight at the high school for wrestling.
Yeah, we can take a break from the articles.
Yay.
I was going to suggest the same thing, because I know what you said at the beginning that he had to go.
Sorry.
Does anyone have a problem with that?
Oh, isn't he fancy? Oh, no one's ever used the podium before. I like that.
A whole other thing.
All right, so I don't know if you wanted to direct specific questions at the fundraiser, but there a couple of teams had approached me about something called SNAP fundraising, which is online-based fundraiser where essentially what happens is the kids email people that they know, asking to donate directly to the program, and basically the way that it works is it kind of eliminates, like, we do a lot of different fundraisers, for additional things that are above and beyond normal budgeted items, kind of bigger ticket items, not always that they're raising money for that season necessarily, but they might be larger, like for example, volleyball wanted to put in a double net system, which is basically involved augmenting the gym floor. This was they did a different fundraiser for that, but that's just an example of one of the things that was done. So I know that there's some specific questions. I had given some materials.
Yeah, I think everyone got a good idea of what it was and everything
Okay.
else. I think there were some concerns with the board as far as number one, the split.
Yep.
Where, they're getting a little bit bigger of a portion, especially if there's only a smaller percentage of the team that signs up for it or contributes to it. But I think it was also the concern that you have to give up your email and other information. I think that was like the biggest concern.
Okay.
Are the kids emailing? We got the impression that you give the emails to this company who then.
That is not my
emails out.
understanding. My understanding is that the kids are sending the emails directly to people that they know. I've had several conversations with the gentleman who's running this local office. Basically, what the emails are sent, they're encrypted, and the only way that you can get to the fundraiser is from your email, the email that you receive from the student, and you have to click the link. So you can't just go to a website. It has to go directly through that site. They've assured us that there's no selling of information or emails or anything like that, and it's destroyed after the initial. They don't hang on to those emails, I guess. The other thing, there is the incentive is 77% if more than 70% of the students participate and get people to donate. The benefits, I mean, it's a bigger split than you get from other fundraisers where you're selling something. I guess the primary difference is you're selling something. And the kids do not handle money, coaches don't handle money, so it's all transacted through their website, and they drive traffic to the individual fundraising site as well, this company. So they have a service fee, basically, is what the cut is. In addition to a kind of standard 3% credit card fee. There is an additional amount of money. So if you go on and buy gear, like Campbell gear from this particular site, they'll give 10% back to the program as well.
I think something else came up too, if I'm not mistaken, was wrestling that is already doing this, correct?
They kind of jumped the gun. They
Right, but
started without.
in the little infomercial, a little clip, whatever.
Yeah.
They state like what the monies go towards.
Mhm.
And if I'm not mistaken, one of them was transportation.
Right, which is
You played
not.
it for us, Liz.
What?
You played it for us.
I did play it, but I didn't pay attention.
They're saying like cost of transportation.
And
and
that's
just-
not
Right.
true. That was incorrect. I wasn't articulating what they're raising money for correctly, because I made it pretty clear to the coaches that we're raising money for things that are not budgeted. It's above above and beyond items. So typically and historically, what they've done is, maybe gotten some team gear. That's stuff that they keep.
Yep.
That they've raised money for. Some teams have used that money for team dinners, or food for away trips. And I know some parents provide that as well. But in the past, I know baseball in particular would do after practice on a Saturday. They might get pizzas for the kids or something like that.
And the pitching machine and stuff like that.
Stuff that's currently the basketball teams they want to raise money for a shooting machine. That's pretty good. It's pretty costly.
So when this goes out, are you going to be specific as far as what the monies are going for, or
Yes.
is it going to be like vague like this? Like you have like 4 bullet points of like what it's going for.
Yeah, some of the bullet points that I put on there are a couple specific and a couple other ones that are just general in terms of what they raise money for. But in my opinion, the more specific, the better. I know in the fall we had a couple of the kids went out, I think, for football, and we're not really clear with what they're raising money for. So I made it pretty clear to the coaches that if you're going to raise money, you've got to be very clear of what it's for. Make sure that it's not something that we're budgeting for, because it's.
How does it work? Like when it's a large purchase, like the pitching machine or the shooting machine or I forget what other things were mentioned, but when it's a big item like that, does that then become property of the school district, or does that belong to the team? Like, how does that?
When we raised, what was it, $11,000 for the wrestling mat. We donated, we had a special meeting and we donated it. The youth program donated it to the school. So it's now the school's property.
Okay, is that typically what happens? Okay.
Is there, I hate to say another spreadsheet, is there something somewhere where you mentioned you want to make sure they're not buying something that's already budgeted for? Is there somewhere that's clearly tracked so we know where the money is?
Everything that's spent through the fundraising accounts is.
Well, but I
is
mean,
accounted for.
before they raise the money, is there a
Yeah.
check-in process with you to make sure they're not raising money for something they're already getting?
Do you have information from this company that, I mean, as far as the success rate in comparison to like when you just sell the cards, like door to door? I realize it eliminates that process going door to door, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering what the success rate is in a program like this in comparison to the cards. Because I know like with football,
Yeah.
I mean, there was a big push as far as, okay, you're going to sell X amount of cards.
Right.
And these kids are out pounding the pavement constantly, like selling. So I'm not certain how something like this does in comparison.
Yeah, I mean, it does pretty well. It's relatively new in this area. It is a nationwide company, but I don't have a specific number. I could get that for you.
I mean, did they have averages for you? Like a team of like 40 will produce X amount of dollars. A team of 30 will.
Yeah, I mean, I think wrestling cleared about $1,500 with, I think there's 10 kids. So, I mean, anywhere from, I would say a football team probably could be upwards, of $7,000 to $10,000 if they're. So that's comparable to what they do with the cards.
Yeah.
I mean, there are fees. There are fees that come out of that. Like part of every organization is a little bit different, but Adrenaline is one that's been around for a long time, and we've used with a lot of our programs. And after you get the cut, there's a part of the payment that you make to them is to cover a portion of some of the incentive items that the kids can earn. Like in baseball, they have bats and things like that, and different types of shirts.
Well, I think the most important thing with this, I mean, again, no matter what you do, you're not going to get 100%. Everything, especially where they're going to take care of all the legwork, and you're just going to, the kid's going to supply emails or however that process is going to work. I think the important thing is, and I've said it before, and I know it's gotten back to you, that we need to be extremely specific. The kids even need to know, when they're going out, they need to know exactly what they're fundraising for.
Absolutely.
We're looking for your email because we're looking to collect money, raise monies for X.
Yeah.
I've had too many kids come to my doorstep and they're selling football cards, baseball cards. I buy them every year. But I ask the same question every year. What are you collecting money for? I don't know. Coach told me to. I don't know. Coach told me to. And they don't know what they're raising money for.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important that they know. I mean, it's going to help them sell also.
Absolutely.
I just want to make a comment too. I think it's a great idea. as a potential donor, though,
Mm.
I worry that, well, my concern is the kids aren't, I don't know how invested the kids are in this fundraiser. Like in other fundraisers, they're selling an item. So the donor gets something tangible.
Right.
Or, the kids do something. So you're motivating the kids to do something with your donation. You're encouraging activity, or Race Crazy, you are encouraging acts of kindness to be done, that kind of thing. Something where the kids are just kind of asking for donations, and there's not really maybe there is, but I don't see a give back kind of a thing for donors. That concerns me.
Yeah.
I'd rather have, something where the kids are working to earn it, or, there's some kind of a give back to the community, or.
Yeah, and I
Rather give
had
more.
some of the same concerns, and that
Yeah.
was one of the things that I talked to the person who oversees the guy from the company,
Mhm.
and so it's sort of I guess it's a little bit of a trip. I mean, because a lot of the feedback that I've gotten from people who buy things is that they
They don't need
they'd
them.
rather give you $20
Yeah.
than buy
Yeah.
the part that they're never going to use,
Yeah.
which isn't so.
Yeah, I understand that too.
And that's not. I mean, it's you can go either way on that. And
Yeah.
that's why I wasn't entirely comfortable, initially. So I talked to this guy quite a few times. So.
Okay.
So the basketball didn't finish. I'd be interested to see.
We froze it.
You
So-
froze it.
So basically, what we would probably do, what we can do, a couple different things.
He froze the snap thing as soon as we started talking about it.
Oh,
So that money's there. It's just, so that can be refunded direct from the company, and because they tend to do it in a small window, maybe like a 3-week or a month window, and do the push, and then
Mhm.
so whatever direction you guys decide to go.
Maybe you can make each individual player send personal thank you cards to each person who made a contribution.
That would be
Work on your
nice.
writing skills, communication skills.
That would be
Or
a
if they
great
achieve
thing.
their goal, they could do a volunteer project for something, or, essentially this is
I don't think we should refund
crowdfunding,
that.
right? You're not selling anything necessarily. I mean, as long as the company's not keeping the emails,
Right.
I'm in favor of trying it,
Why
because
not?
I think there's fatigue for any fundraising event that you do. After you've done it a little while, it starts to grow old, and I think you have to try new things.
I think it's just tough with so many fundraisers going on constantly. The one thing about Litchfield is we're really tight with our tax dollars, but we're very generous with our charitable giving, and for clubs and teams and school efforts. There's a lot out there. There's a lot going on.
Well, the nice thing about this is that it reaches beyond Litchfield too. I mean,
Right.
You could
Yeah, that's true.
ask your aunt or uncle in California, that you
Mhm.
wouldn't if you were
We've gotten
selling
big
something
donations from
physical.
overseas already from some of our exchange students, and
I mean, I'm spending $400 a year on soccer, another $400 when they played before they got to high school. I don't mind giving a donation rather than having my kid out selling stuff.
But maybe it's time to come up with almost like a schedule where it's not every year, every season. Maybe it's they do a presentation and there's a hierarchy of how many people can do a fundraiser.
Well, I think the basketball should keep the money they raised already. I don't think we should return it. Is that up to us?
I wasn't aware.
Or
that
are we
it
gonna
was-
vote? Gonna vote on doing this, or?
We had
Do
questions,
we need
that's
to
why.
vote?
Well, I
Can you
think the
unfreeze it?
biggest concern, and just, going forward, Jared, that anytime that there's a new fundraiser that's presented, has to be presented to the board for its approval. And I think that was the concern, and that's where, the halt came in. It's like, okay, no one knew anything about it, and all of a sudden, like, we're starting a new fundraiser. Again, I mean, however you want to fundraise, I mean, it's, as long as it's on the up and up and it falls within the criteria that we're looking for, then that's fine. And in this particular case, compared to those placards that you sell at the coupons, which is what, probably 50-50,
yeah,
I would guess.
typically.
So, I mean, you get a bigger percentage. It's just whether or not you're going to sell as many, but I guess only time will tell.
Yeah, typically the best that you'll do on those would be 60%, but usually it's 50.
Will they let you unfreeze that or is it over?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to talk with. I mean, the money is there, and they can process it through, or they can refund it.
And who was this, basketball that had started it?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the SNAP fundraiser.
I second.
For basketball
or for
What's that?
basketball, for any?
For anything. I mean, whoever wants to use it can
Once
use
it's
it.
approved, once other teams can use it.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Abstain. And so if you say you have monies right now, it's like frozen that they'd already started collecting?
Yeah, it's some of the within 24 hours, people were already giving money. So
Yeah.
they typically have a period where they don't cut the check for, it's usually, I think it's like 3 or 4 weeks, and then they'll cut the check. They cut it directly to the school, so nobody ever has to handle any money. It goes, it's made up to Campbell High School and then is directed into the.
So where has it been shortened as far as the collection time? Are you looking to reopen it for basketball?
Yeah. So initially, what he had told me when I had him freeze it, he had said that we could refund the money and then just reopen it. I don't know if that would create more of a problem than if they can just.
Or can they just reopen and just add that money towards the other?
So
Yeah.
I'll talk to them and see what they do. I think they have the capability to do it.
Yeah, I mean, because basketball season is still going on, so, why not do it now?
Yep.
And there are enough kids that, still be here next year. If
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
few seniors aren't here, I mean, they'll still utilize the item.
Yeah.
But like I said, let's just be specific as far as what we're fundraising for.
Yep, absolutely.
Good luck.
All right. Thank you.
Go wrestling.
All right.
Nick.
So we'll bring us back to warrants.
So I think we're set on the warrants. I think we hit everything unless there's other.
Well, on-
7%, right?
On warrant article 3 and 4, I sent an email to, and I included yourself also, just the bullet points. I talked to Tom a couple days back, and we had some conversation, and he put some bullet points together. So,
Yep.
I mean, it's basically gonna be a slide for each one.
So actually from Tom's email, I envisioned right after Article 2, we would just insert, here's info on 3, here's info on 4. So
Yeah.
there'll be slides right in there. So it'll be a copy and paste,
Yeah.
one slide each.
5 is pretty self-explanatory, and I'm just gonna get numbers from Corey as far as what's in there right now. And then if you can also give me the numbers for the project at LMS, and the other one that will most likely come out of that fund, or should come out of that fund. Anyway, I mean, we're not at the end of the year, so where it is, but they're gonna ask how much is in there right now, and give the 2 examples that we already have 2, small situations that, not really that small, but are costly. Then Article 6, Liz will speak on. And 7, I will, and I spent some time with, I'll talk to Jetty and Corey the other day, just coming up with some ideas like, which direction to go in, and I got a little bit like written down how I want to present, but the biggest thing is I just want to make sure that the public sees it, and I'll give someone of a definition of like how the town's budget is encompassed, and then add the tax cap to it, and then, extra revenue, then they can spend a little bit more.
Do you speak first, or does the petitioner speak first?
Petitioner does. Well, she'll just speak as far as why she wants to have the tax cap. I don't know why, but we'll find out. But what I'm going to drill home is we'll have charts as far as showing what the town has increased since their tax cap. This will be the 3rd year of the tax cap. The town's budget has increased 1.3 million. So on a 5.4 million, it's up to 6.7. Our budget has gone from 21,827 to 22,865 for an increase of 1.4 million. So on a $22 million budget, we've gone up about the same as the town's $5 million budget. And that's with a tax cap. And the town has gone up 1.2 million, yet their tax cap is 175,000. So do the math, 3 times 175. I know we do a lot with math now, like 2 plus 2 isn't quite 2. It's, several steps to get there.
Yes.
175 times 3 is not 1,000,002. And I'm just going to, as far as with the tax cap, I mean, it would be detrimental to a school district. And just reach out to one of the districts that has the tax cap. Dr. Jetty can tell you stories of Franklin, and I can tell you now Dover's not in good shape either. There's 2 towns
Laconia,
that have a tax cap. What's that?
Laconia.
It's not something you want, I mean, to continue, we talked about in Article 2 as far as maintaining and retaining good teachers. With a tax cap, you're gonna end up with class sizes, going from 16 to 25. Not to mention everything else that can be lost, so. But that's 7. And hopefully the teachers will stick around because I know their article comes up first, but because Article 7 is definitely, it goes right with the teachers as far as what can happen down the road with that type of article. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
All right.
Is it too late to, since I was not here at the last meeting, is it too late for me to weigh in and cast my vote against Article 7? So it's 0-5-0?
Yeah, someone wants to reopen it. But no, because it's already gone,
It's
right?
already been
You
already gone.
posted, so you
Okay.
have to wait until.
Can we
after
re-vote
deliberative.
after deliberative? So that on the ballot, it says 0-5-0?
All right. Are you gonna be talking about a truant officer or?
I am.
Excellent.
So I'm actually asking the board, we've given you a copy of RSA 189:34, which says a school district shall appoint a truant officer. So we have a student that we're concerned about school attendance. And so I asked the question, I said, well, who's our truant officer? And we don't seem to have one.
I thought
So,
our resource officer was our truant officer.
nope,
No?
I
No.
thought so too.
I think
So
Brian
there's-
should do it.
sorry?
Fair enough. I bet Mike Perez.
I bet Perez, we could
We'll
do
go
it, give him a
ride.
little stipend, knock on doors.
So I'm
Little
gonna
stun gun.
ask you to appoint Devin Vandersky as our truant officer, so that she is empowered to take the authority that's given under the law. And so I'll make that request, and then I'll talk about the policy in a second.
So we've never had anyone at the high school?
I thought I read somewhere that it was the principal.
My experience.
Oh, no.
I
Okay.
checked with institutional
I think-
memory,
I
and
think Ann Halloran, remember Ann Halloran?
No.
Okay, well, she was the assistant principal,
Right.
dean of, students. I think she used to handle that only because we didn't have anybody that was appointed. Ann was tough.
Mike, can I ask why not the RSO? Or SRO?
well, so it's an interesting question, and I think part of it is that the person's not a school district employee, so our ability to work and direct would be a little more limited than if we had a school employee. We could say, this is what our policy says, and this is what we need you to do. It doesn't mean the SRO is not going to play a key role, but it's a different role.
Do we
Sounds
need
like
one
Devin.
for each school?
So the RSA just says a truant officer, and actually, if you read the RSA, it makes it sound like it's a highly desirable person. You have to appoint somebody every year, and allow other people an opportunity to become truant officer. So,
Everyone's knocking the door down for this one, right?
and actually, the request came from Devin because she is working with a student, and so she said, if you just give me this authority, I will follow through on this case, and then I think we then will get to the policy. And I think we got to take a longer look at what we want to do relative to students who are truant. So, there's a policy practice piece that we need to just adjust. But we still need somebody who can stand before a judge and say, I am the duly appointed truant officer of the Litchfield School Board.
And I'll make a motion to make Devin our truant officer.
One second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And we'll be back with policy JH as we just do a review with the law. And, we're seeing an increase of students who aren't attending for a variety of reasons. I mean, anxiety is something that we're really working on. And so as all of these issues come to play, we want to make sure that we've got good policy to support students and families. So we'll be in touch.
Let me get a little badge. We'll have those stickers here, right? Sticker badges.
So the calendar discussion, we haven't done anything since the last meeting, but I didn't know if the board had other thoughts they wanted to weigh in. If not, we'll just leave it as a placeholder until we're ready. And part of it is waiting for the vote. Because if the contract goes into play, it's a different calendar than if we don't have the contract. So
I just was curious about April vacation. I'm just like, is it, because this year it's like the week of the 20th, and not that it matters one way or the other, but I see that there's 8 weeks between February and April. Is there like a pattern that we normally follow?
So our pattern is to follow what our, the schools where we send our CCD students to. So
Which students?
the vocational students
Oh,
going to the
okay.
Career Tech Center. So honestly, it's whatever Alburn and Pinkerton do.
Oh,
We,
okay.
and so they sort of get on the same page and then we follow suit.
Oh, I see.
Because otherwise you have students who have nowhere to go for a week and then miss a week. So it's a 2-week impact
Oh,
if
okay.
we don't line that up.
It's like
So
the beginning of the year
Good
is
to
like
know.
that too, right?
Hmm.
The beginning of the year?
Yeah, the challenges when we start after Labor Day.
Yep.
We start before.
Okay.
all right, on that one. So follow up to board inquiries. So the sophomore project, the timeline, the instructions, and then the senior project timeline, and the teaching assistant responsibilities. So there's more background material provided for the board, and Principal Lonergan's here. If there are questions, we can certainly get those addressed.
And Bill was telling me, I don't know if anyone's gone to the website or not, but they've cleaned it up quite a bit and
Yeah,
updated quite a bit. And
yeah, the senior
Read some
project
stuff up.
page, they put the PowerPoint presentation in there, cleaned out the dead links or the links to the old forms and things like that. So the students have access to the Google Classroom, the code, they can get in there, change the Twitter account so that it reflected this year's dates. So Lynn Nagy in particular did a really nice job with pretty much with Julie Green, our librarian.
don't have any other questions this time, Bob?
What's the difference between being a assistant or having a youth basketball team as a sophomore project and having it again as a senior project? Do they make sure they don't do the same thing
Yes,
twice?
they do.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was
we
just
don't allow them
curious.
To double dip and use their sophomore project to just add 10 more hours on the senior project. And if you look, you'll see a lot of
For effort.
coaching for sophomore projects
Yeah.
and decreases significantly through the senior year. So we do have probably 6 or 7 students, but if you looked at a sophomore project 2 years ago, there were like 50 some odd coaches volunteering for programs in Litchfield, Manchester, summer programs down at the church, things like that. So there was a lot of coaching down
Fun in the sun.
there.
Safer.
Quick update on exterior door numbers. So if you walk around any of our buildings, the doors on the outside are very clearly labeled, like door 5A. And I learned in asking this question that the fire department came, there's a probably a national methodology for how you do it. The main entrance is a certain number. You work your way clockwise around the building, et cetera. So everything is very clearly labeled outside. The high school and GMS are very clearly labeled inside so that a person knows, they can look at the door frame and knows what exit they're at. For some reason, LMS is not labeled on the inside yet. So it was a good question. And now that we know that that was not done, we're working to get it done. So there will be numbers there also. And that'll help a staff member, if you call for an ambulance, where am I? I'm at exit 3A, and you can clearly, and the sign outside is huge, so the ambulance can find it pretty easily. But that'll be fixed. All part of our emergency updates. It's that. And so the last thing to talk about is the bus purchase. So if you remember, when we were looking at the bus contracts, one bid had talked about a model 2018, another bid had talked about a model 2020. So we called down, Michelle actually called down and asked them to bring us a brand new school bus. So what are the buses that our students are going to be on next year?
Are they gonna be flat in the front?
So they brought one up. No, but I'll talk about the front because it is different than the current model. So they brought a bus up. Corey, Barbara, Michelle, and I went out, got on the bus, and learned all about the bus. So that we could
I
see.
would have gone.
These were brand new buses that had just
Cool.
arrived. They are 2020 models. That's what they anticipate ordering for us. So the front is it's less boxy. and it actually has a more sloped hood. So the driver can actually see a child in front of the bus more easily. There's also a swing arm that will come out. So the child is forced to
Awesome.
walk about 10 feet, well, no, I don't know, 8 feet in front of the bus. So with the slope and the arm, it really makes
Oh,
the
good.
safety of the front of the bus a lot better. These buses are, they're made for New England, so they have a double insulated floor. They have, actually, the windows are sort of darkened so that somebody from the public can't really see into the bus all that well. So that will make it so that that's a little bit different view. The windows are larger, I thought. All LED lighting. So I think about an old refrigerator to a new one. You know, you open one now, it's like you can see everything. It's like nice and bright white. That's exactly the way I felt on the buses with the new
They're
lights.
gonna have cameras?
The buses will have cameras on them, and
Interior or exterior?
Both, I hope.
Interior.
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 Will you be able to see
Audio,
them
yeah.
at the school district?
You have to
Office.
request them.
You have to request them.
They keep it on like flash drives, digital
Oh, okay.
media. So
That's-
if you have something happen, you can request that.
That's awesome.
Okay.
tremendous enhancements with when the driver does the pre-check in the morning. So there's a computer they take with them. They actually walk around the bus, and so they stop at the first wheel. They're supposed to inspect the wheel, but now they touch the computer to a little tab, and it registers, yes, the driver stopped and looked at this wheel, right? So there's a real
Or
log
at least the tab.
that the person has sort of at least walked around and has done the stations that they're supposed to do in pre-checking. It's all computerized and recorded. They have to walk to the back of the bus, and there's a button they have to push that says, I've walked back here and I've laid eyes on the seat. You know, if there was a kiddo who had climbed under a seat and really hidden very well and they got missed, as soon as they exit the bus, there's a motion sensor on the bus that would send an alarm if there was motion on the bus. So, you know, there's just all sorts of security enhancements and features on these. So I'm pretty happy with what we're getting. And, you know, Corey or Michelle, is there anything I missed with that? You had the tour also.
Interesting, but they had like acoustic ceilings.
Oh,
So
that's
the
right.
kid liked to dampen the sound a little bit.
Yeah.
And then
Oh.
the driver also has a PA system, internal and external, so he can talk
Oh,
to
wow.
the,
Oh, that's
talk to the-
nice.
They can
It's
yell at
outside,
somebody
it's outside.
blowing by the flashing reds.
You know, all they have to do is talk into it. They don't have to yell to try and get to the kid with that.
That's
So
great.
Music.
How, are there any improvements as far as tracking? I know we had talked about maybe getting an app so that we know where our buses are and.
there is a product available called First View through them, which I think we'll start with we're going to have a webinar and like a demo of it.
Mhm.
But then there's the district dashboard where we'll be able to determine where buses are.
Okay.
I think there's some talk
Tom,
on
you need
how
that.
far we want to go with that in
That's
terms
all
of
for you.
providing the app to parents.
Okay, great.
I think what we do is like have each child who's the first pickup
Mhm.
phone the next person and then just keep that track and then you can do it.
Mhm.
We do that.
I mean, you laugh.
Mary
that's-
Frank's the first bus
They'll have
stop.
phones. Yeah.
It calls us. We're the last bus stop.
Oh, really?
Bus running 10
But
minutes
Jack
late.
does it. He like goes on a Barker, says, you know, they pick up the bus yet? Nope. So he knows he doesn't go out yet. Works.
That's awesome.
And they'll text each other. Yep. Yep. Jeez. Feel bad for the first person, but you know.
I have to say, even the blinking yellow and red lights are LED lights, and they have a different feel
Yeah.
than a single light bulb coming on, kind of blinking.
Yeah.
These things, I don't know, because there's like 20 of them up there or whatever. So you get this array. It really changes, I think, the safety feature of the bus. So I
Fantastic.
feel very good about where we're headed. And he said, you know, this is the bus that we're going to end up with. So
And then 8 more of them, right?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not all
We're
going
not
on
just
one.
getting one good bus,
No,
right?
no,
Okay.
one route.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bus
All
three.
new buses.
It's a long trip.
All right.
All right. That'll bring us to community forum. No? All right. School board comments? You want to go first, Tina?
Is this my
Yep.
thing? I have a lot of I started typing up a report because I was so excited about the NHSBA delegate assembly that I attended.
Saturday.
Was it just last week?
Week before.
I don't know. You
was
tell
gonna
us.
say the longest week ever. So basically, it was broken down into kind of 3 sessions. The first session was a presentation by Shaker Regional School District, their school board and their superintendent, talking about, they were the 2018 School Board of the Year. So they talked a lot about where they were in 2017 and the changes that they've made to make improvements in their district. And I was really, I felt like, as they were speaking, I felt like they were us. Like they were us last year. And everything was the same. Like they had the same challenges that we have. They had challenges with culture and climate, with communication, with switching over to competency-based and standard-based grading and reporting and instruction, and individualized teaching and learning, one-to-one program. Like all of those hot button issues that we've been dealing with, they have been dealing with too. And so the first thing they did is they hired an awesome superintendent. So
Check.
right, I feel like we've already done that.
All right.
So we're on our way. And then they worked with the superintendent and over 100 people in their community. Well, they outsourced a community culture survey from UNH. The UNH Survey Center did this study for them. And then they had multiple community meetings, which they called conversations. So they had superintendents, principals have coffee, have a nightly, a forum at night, one during the day during school. So they got all kinds of feedback from the community and all the different stakeholders. And then they took the results of that survey and created a 5-year action plan, basically on how are we going to address these issues. So they had 100 people on their committee to create this action plan. Basically, anybody who had input, who had a something they needed to address and was included in the committee. And then they had a smaller committee of 40 people who worked on 8 key areas and the action items within those 8 key areas to impact learning. And the thing they figured out from all of this work was that culture was the biggest influence on student learning. You have to fix your culture before you can do make any other improvements. So that was really interesting to me. And I came back with lots of links, and you can access their action plan is posted on their district website, and it's, you can go in and click on it, and it's really comprehensive with a 100-member committee. I would expect it to be. But I was really impressed with how cohesive they seemed as a school board, and they talked a lot about their meetings are very quick and efficient. They do the business and they don't linger, and they evaluate their superintendent quarterly. So they have a non-public meeting where they talk about kind of how he's doing and what they're still seeing. They talked about the measuring success. How do we know that we're reaching our goals? And one of the interesting things, someone asked a question, what are your indicators? How do you know that you're doing a good job? Is it test scores? Is it college acceptance rates? Is it SAT scores? Is it, benchmarks, improvements? And he said, no. And everybody went, how do you measure how you're doing? And he said, we just go with the consensus that our culture is improving and we're making progress and that we're seeing success. He's like, he goes, there's a tangible difference when you walk into our buildings now than when you walked into our buildings in 2017. You can feel it, and the parents know it, the district knows it, the admins know it, the teachers know it, the kids know it, and learning is improved. So it was really kind of inspiring. Like, we could do it. Like we can make we are on our way to being an amazing school district. It was really just interesting. And then they talked about the other initiatives that they're working on. So it was this big 5-year plan. So instead of saying goals, it was more of an action plan. Like, this is a plan of how we're going to get to where we want to be. And then I'm looking in my drive and I can't find it, of course. So they did one-to-one computing was another key initiative. They have Chromebook carts in every classroom from K to 2, and then one-to-one from 3 to 12. Actually, I can look at my notes right here. And then personalized teaching and learning. So that goes along with the proficiency-based and competency-based, standards-based learning. When they made the switch, they closed their parent portal. They did not have a parent portal until the switch was complete, to give teachers enough time to, really tweak how their instruction and their grading went along with it, so that they weren't entering a grade and then saying, well, and then having parents contact and say, well, what does that mean? What kind of progress are you looking for, and what happened? So that was really interesting. And the grading and reporting piece was the last piece that they worked on. They started with the instruction. Because when you're teaching kids, you start with what they need to know and how you're going to teach them. And then the assessment part is the last piece. So I thought that was a very interesting way to look at it. They've switched completely to a 4-point scoring system from K to 12 all the way up through. The report cards look the same all the way up through. But they're very detailed, and they paint an accurate picture. I feel like we've kind of gone in that same direction. All our report cards have the same standards, but the standards aren't really clear unless you know the lingo. So it was just really interesting to hear all about. I'm such a geek. I totally geeked out on it. And then their other initiative was advocating for mental health and social emotional learning. So then, which is a huge piece of it. I guess I didn't realize, because I'm not in the classrooms as much as I used to be. We all hear teachers say, my class this year is a really tough class. I've never had students with these kinds of issues. And the next presenter was Merrimack School District, and they have done a comprehensive social and emotional learning study, basically, in their district, and they're taking steps now to increase support and awareness in their
We saw
district.
them. They were at our training, Merrimack School Board, and
Yeah.
it's at Marge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing things that they're doing there. One of the most shocking thing was, I can't remember the number now, if it was 1 in 5 or 1 in 10. It makes a big difference. But it was something like at least 1 in 10. It was at least 1 in 10. I want to say 1 in 5 kids nowadays experience some sort of childhood trauma.
Oh, ACE scores and stuff like that.
What's that?
Oh, all right. That's a whole different thing.
I don't know about scores, but they experience some kind of childhood trauma, and then that vastly impacts their ability to come to school and learn. Kids are coming to school unprepared and unable to learn because their basic needs aren't being met. So it was really kind of eye-opening about how much of our kids have these issues, and how do we deal with them. It used to be that was kind of a parent-family thing, but we have the biggest concentration of that population possible. So if we can provide support and resources and awareness to families, and that's what Merrimack has done. They've formed partnerships with all of the community agencies. The more we can do that, the more we can help our kids, and everybody will be ready to learn as a result. It'll be less of a distraction, and it sets the stage for learning. So that part was really interesting. That was the whole morning, was those two presentations. And then we got to, yes.
If I can just hop on that piece. So Merrimack has partnered actually with Hudson, Pelham, and Salem.
Yeah.
And they're all in sort of this collaborative, right? So they're all learning.
Right.
One of the things they learned in talking to other districts is everybody has their own lingo. And so they were
Yes.
sort of standardizing, like, this is what we're talking about, right?
Right.
So it really
Yes.
brought those districts together. I've done a little bit of internal checking and have also checked in with the superintendent in Merrimack about, can we join?
Yeah,
Can we become
I think
part
that
of
would
this
be great.
collaborative? And so we've got some wheels in motion. So
Great.
we'll be in touch with the
Great.
board further about what that looks like. But, when I hear that there's a collaborative of 4 really good districts that have a couple of years under their belt, and are willing to have somebody else hop on the bandwagon, I'm
Let's
like,
do
oh
it,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
All of our
You know, so-
professional development in Hudson is revolved around that. An ACE score is like, let's say you're the product of a divorce. That's 1 point. Your
okay.
mother has a substance abuse problem. That's 2 points.
Mhm.
Your brother died. That's 3 points. And the higher the score,
Oh, ACE.
ACE,
Yeah,
yes.
she did talk about that.
That's
Adverse
huge
child
now.
experience.
childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is very telling.
Yeah, yeah. And, more and more kids are going through these ACEs before they even get to school.
9
So-
months
Yeah.
is when your memory starts forming.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. So that was interesting. Oh, and then we had the delegate assembly. The delegate assembly. Have you ever been to one? Oh, it was really interesting. So they gave us this nice little binder that had all of the proposed resolutions in it. And then we voted to continue on the continuing resolution. So that the resolutions are basically how the school boards direct the NHSBA how to testify in cases at the State House and regarding education. So like Bill 193, and our resolution that we proposed was, oh gosh, it was 2 weeks ago. I can't even, ours was about the manifest hardship case that we had, and that we wanted the state to restore, encourage local support for local school boards to make those decisions, rather than putting undue hardship on local school boards, which was received very well. I think a lot of school boards are feeling that kind of tug. If a student appeals to the school board saying that they're not receiving they're having a really hard time at their school, they don't have access to the education that they should have, et cetera, et cetera. Recently, the state board of education has been voting in favor of tuitioning those students out of district.
That sounds familiar.
It does, at the district's cost. So Merrimack Valley has had several of these cases that the school board voted no. We can meet your needs here in district, and the state board of education said, no, you can't. You need to pay to tuition them out to another school. So Merrimack Valley proposed an amendment to our proposed resolution saying that if the state board of education has the opposite finding of the local school board, if they disagree with the local school board, then the state should pay for the tuition for that student to go out of district. So it's not, it's not a law. It's not that's being presented. It's the New Hampshire School Board Association's position on that kind of legislation. So if a bill comes through the House where that issue comes up, they're now directed by the voting members to testify in favor of our resolution. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So we did that for all of we read through the resolutions.
Did they happen to mention that there are more and more of these cases coming up right now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I actually, I spoke about our situation, and I spoke about our case, and it was it was when we finally got to the vote, there wasn't much discussion about it. I think everybody kind of had made up their minds ahead of time on this one. There were maybe three school board representatives that voted in opposition. It sailed through. So I think school boards all across New Hampshire are worried about what the implications might be down the road. So it was a great experience. If you ever get a chance to go, I'm a total school board geek now. I'm realizing that it was a really informative day. So I learned a lot.
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for going.
Hey, my pleasure.
Any other comments from the school board? All right. And we'll move on. We have public minutes from January 23rd, 2019.
What?
She looks up minutes from 23rd.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I only just had one thing because I missed the meeting last time. I was watching it on the TV.
But we can go through that in a minute. We're just approving them right now.
I know, but I'm just saying part of this is wrong. I congratulated Jill Pennington on her award, and she said actually she's not the recipient of the New Hampshire Band Directors Association Band Director of the Year. That's Mrs. Late, I guess. So we can take that out.
Yeah, Michelle.
Yeah, when the nomination was submitted by the person, that's what they had put in it, that she was got awarded the band thing and all that stuff. That was actually Carolyn Late that nominated her, so.
Jill.
Well, that's interesting.
She
She gave
her
it back
award
to
last
Karen.
That's what she said.
Yeah, she still leads. She does the.
No, we can look at it. We can always come back and change it.
Right.
All right. Any other conversation? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain.
Tara abstains.
Tara. Say abstained.
Abstain. Oh. Yes.
Thank you.
That's right.
All right. That'll bring us a curriculum report.
Mary, I'm assuming you don't want this.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's Thank you. So just quickly looking at the report that you guys all have in front of you, I wanted to highlight just a couple of things that have been going on. We just wrapped up our book study on the innovator's mindset. It has been, it was just a great experience. The feedback has been, for the most part, positive in terms of the format. We did it all through Google Classroom. I think the only negative feedback I heard was that a lot of teachers felt very exposed having to put themselves out there for everybody that was participating to see. So I think it was a big growth piece there. But just as a kind of addendum to that, we during one of the reflection weeks, I asked teachers to create their learning hashtag. And so we took a list, narrowed it down, and put it out to the entire staff across the district. And so we have voted to use hashtag Live to Learn as our district hashtag for learning, both professional learning and student learning. So as I continue to tweet, as you'll see a lot more of that coming around. The other piece, we talked about grading and reporting a little bit. That group, just to give you an update, has really gotten some traction on revising the work study practices to ensure that there are more descriptors, indicators, and that it's clearer and it aligns better to what our teachers are already doing. That has, one of the pieces of feedback from the very beginning was that it just seemed sort of in a vacuum. It wasn't really aligning to things that connected to the schools. So, some buildings have started to look to tie them into their core values and things of that nature, so that they are they're more meaningful to both students and teachers. So we've gotten a lot of traction there. Our next meeting is 2 weeks, I believe, and groups have been asked to bring what they've drafted back to their staff, have some conversations, and we will try and wrap that up in the next, if not this month, the following month, so that we can move forward with a couple other things before the end of the year. So that is a couple quick highlights of my report.
Thank you.
And now we're going into
State assessment.
state assessment. I'm sorry that this can't be displayed, but I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about the upcoming state assessments and some of the things that we've been doing as a district to help prepare our staff and students for to be successful on them, and also to give the board an idea of what some of the ties are between the different levels. So just to look at a little history, prior to 2015, we did kneecaps for ELA, math, and science. 2015, the state transitioned to Smarter Balance, and we did that for ELA and math in grades 3 through 8. In grade 11, but we were still doing kneecap science in grades 4, 8, and 11. At the high school level, that switched in 2016 when the state shifted to using the SAT, which we are still using. Last year, the state also shifted from Smarter Balance to the New Hampshire State Assessment System, or NHSAS, for English and math, grades 3 through 8, as well as science. The slight change there being that instead of assessing science in grades 4, 8, and 11, we're now assessing them in 5, 8, and 11. It's just to give a little history. So what I did is I pulled informational writing samples from some of the practice tests for grade 3, grade 7, and then something from the SAT, just so you can get a feel for how it progresses across the grade levels. So if we look at grade 3, students are asked to write a 1 to 3 paragraph explanation based on 2 different passages, and there wasn't enough room on the screen to put the 2 different ones because they were pretty long. But they're asked to read 2 different passages on germs, and then write a 1 to 3 paragraph explanation of how you can fight germs from spreading based on what they are reading. So, it's appropriate for the grade level, but it is still asking them to really look at text and use it to defend their answer. Oh, sorry, I jumped in in grade 7, the complexity increases. They are actually asked to read 3 texts. There's 3 different texts on glass. And they're writing a 2 to 3 paragraph explanation based on the information that they've figured out from the 3 different readings. Okay, so increased level of complexity in the question, as well as increased number of texts involved. Grade 11, this is just one sample. There are multiple in the informational writing section, but this was to write an essay on how the argument was built and how the author persuaded the audience analyzing the features in the text above, as well as to explain the claims, but it's not an opinion-based or an argument-based essay. So again, all of the writing assessments that we're looking at, whether it's, especially in the informational, it's based off of text. So kids are reading and writing together. And these are things that are reflective of what we are seeing in our classrooms. We are asking kids to write based on things that they are reading, things that they are seeing, multiple sources, and applying those skills. So I did include a math strand as well, same grades, 3, 7, and 11. Looking at equations. A little different in math in that the topics and categories are slightly different, but the themes you can see the same. Grade 3, we're asking students to choose the equation that describes the image. By grade 7, we're actually asking them to create it based on more of a word-based problem. And then by grade 11, they're solving for it. So what are we doing to prepare our students? We've had a lot of discussion this year about using our data and in finding ways to help our students be more successful in the test. Now, people tend to think of teaching to the test. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about ways to make kids more comfortable in the testing situations, as well as making sure that our teachers and students know the language that's being used, that's not unfamiliar because they see it on the state assessment, because we're doing the same kinds of activities and assessing the same kinds of skills in our classes. So at GMS and LMS, we actually swapped out the winter benchmarking for NWEA and Ames Web in grades 3 through 8 to practice with the NHSAS system. We're looking at the interims. We're also looking at some of the practice tests because we've encountered some glitches in the systems as we have done some of the practice. So the intent was to do the interims. There are some groups that we may do the practice tests with because of some of the struggles that we've had with the system. Looking specifically at the question style and the content samples to make sure that what we are doing in our classrooms is not that kids are seeing that prior to just being assessed on it. And then I know that we're going to start looking at the interim data when we get it back on grade level teams. At CHS, we took a little shift this year, and all of our students in grades 9 through 11 took the PSAT in the fall to as a practice and in preparation for the SAT. That data from both last year's SAT and this year's PSAT has been the topic of conversation in our data team at the high school for the last couple of months. We've really been looking at this data in teacher groups as well to start to look for instructional feedback. We've been looking at the PSAT data compared to the SAT data to see if we can find some actionable trends. One of the great things about using the PSAT is it does link directly into Khan Academy. So it helps students can now access, once their PSAT scores come back, they can access areas of growth through Khan Academy that they can really be targeted for. And one of the things that we've been trying to do is to get but we just actually found out after I did this that the question analysis from last year's SAT was actually not released. So we've been doing a lot of work to try and get those questions so that we could do an item analysis so that our teachers would have a better idea of specific questions that students were struggling with. But as of this morning, that data is not released. So we're looking at sample questions that are of similar topics. And that is all.
Does anyone have any questions for Mary? All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right. That'll bring us to Mr. Thompson.
All right, thank you. Navigate here. It's okay. A couple things. I do want to, by way of announcement, to share that we have had a parent, Mr. Mark Cloutier, who donated an audiometer last year to the middle school and has contacted us because he'd like to donate one this year to the elementary school. I've attached a description. We're inclined to accept. We do a lot of screenings at our building, and we did get an audiometer a few years ago that uses pictures instead of letters for like preschool students, but this is going to replace the one that's used for the older students. And Mrs. Seabrook said the one we have is pretty old, so it's a really generous and useful donation. I just wanted to bring it to the board so that you're aware of that. And if you want to discuss it or ask more questions, have an opportunity.
And we thank him for his donation.
Okay. All right. And then the next piece I chose to speak about is really exciting for me, I must say. Last year, when we were presenting the proposal for full-day kindergarten, one of the things we discussed is that nationally, by 2015, 81% of the students who attended kindergarten were in full-day programs. And what was the effect for our students in not being in a full-day program? We brought up some data showing that whereas our students began somewhat at the national level, over the course of a year, they actually lagged because their peers nationally were in a full-day program and we had 2.5 hours. So in November, when we presented fall assessment results, I mentioned at that time, I'm really looking forward to the winter assessments for kindergarten to kind of compare. That's why I brought this forward. So I'm assuming that you can all see the pages that are there. Okay, attached to the end of my principal's report. So page 1 of 8 is showing last year's data. Just a quick reference. The light boxes on the right in each pair, those are the national cohort. It's tens of thousands of students at that age level. And you can see, this is for early numeracy, which is the math test, that over the course of last year, our students actually began to lag somewhat. We have done better in math than reading in the last few years with a half-day program, which I still can't fully explain. I think it's what the kids do. I think they do more related to math kind of concepts than they do reading, perhaps, outside of school. But I think this really shows something that I would call an opportunity deficit, in that the kids just didn't have the opportunity to be in a full day program. The interesting things that pop out in this, to give you a frame of reference, in the fall, we had 17% of the students who were in the top 2 levels, well above proficient and above. And that dropped in math to 15% by winter and just under 8% by spring. So what that's showing me is that the kids who had kind of some early skills, they kind of lose ground, again, compared to the national cohort. Our students went up, but not as quickly as the students nationally. The other thing to keep track of on the bottom of the chart is the mean. So this is a composite score. It went from 32.3 in the winter up to 40.8, and by spring to 49.5. They're progressing, but the problem was not as quickly as their cohort group. So to compare, if you look at page 2, this is fall to winter of this school year. And we began with 26.3% in the top 2 levels in the fall, but by winter, we have actually 35.3% of the students who are in the top 2 levels. We have 80% of the students who are average level and above. So that, for me, is really a phenomenal change. And I think it's a great reflection of the success of the program. So I thought that might be of interest to the board. If you go to page 3 is just the fall comparisons. It's not so much different year to year. It was a little higher this year, but page 4 shows the winter to winter comparison. And I think that's more telling because one was a half-day program and one is full. So again, we have bumped up to 80% of the students who are in the top 3 levels by winter. And if you look at the box graph up above, what's really interesting is our mean or median is the dotted line in the dark box. And we're actually above the national average mean, which is a really good thing. And our mean score is also above the solid line, which is the target score. So our students are really doing very well in the full day program in math. In reading, we've also seen an improvement. It's not quite as dramatic as it was in math, but I will share that. If you look at page 5, what I want you to notice is the percentage of students, again, in the top 3 levels, fall, winter, and spring. And last year, we began with 56.5% of them in the top 3 levels in the fall. Then that dropped in the winter, which the teachers reported. I talked to them today during in-service. They said winter scores always tend to dip, and then they kind of pick up towards the end of the year. That's been their observation. But we were down to 51.9% in the top 3 levels. By spring, compared to the national cohort, we had only 2% or 1 student, we only had 51 last year, who was in the top 2 levels. And then we had a total of 58.9%. But again, if you look at the mean scores, which is, again, a composite, and that's for the whole cohort, it'll be interesting because when we compare to this year, we're almost as far by winter as we were by spring last year it's pretty dramatic change. So on page 6, if you look at the mean score again, we went from a fall mean of 38.1 to a winter mean of 72.7. Last year, our spring mean was 80.5. So we discussed this all at the faculty meeting today, because I want to prepare first grade to kind of change their mindset from playing catch up to just start running. You know, I mean, like the warm up, I think, is going to be shorter. So I think it's really exciting. I wanted to share all that with the board. The other thing that's outstanding, especially in math, and I am going to go back to that because it's worth noting. If you look at page 2, we have now 21.2% of our students who are in the top 10 percentile. So that's from, they're above 90%. And we have 21. That's twice as many or twice as high as nationally. And then we have another 14% in the next level. So I think we're catching kids where they are and pushing them forward, all of which for me is a harbinger of good things to come. So I wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Thompson?
Can I add one more thing?
Absolutely.
The paper I gave you is something I've prepared for this year's parents who are enrolling. I reached out to parents last year who were questioning whether half day or full day. And all 3 of the parents, there were only 3, did respond. And I have included their comments with their permission. And all of them talked about their concerns, but it's worked out really well to choose full day. So tomorrow I'm sending my weekly thing a day early, just to give people another reminder of deliberative session. Also, we have something ending Friday, but I will include this. It was just promoting the parent perception as part of information for the incoming kindergarten, just so you're aware.
Excellent.
And thank you for the great suggestion.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Lechleiter.
Good evening. I don't have any handouts tonight. I am going to just quickly, if I could just plug something very quickly. We have our Krispy Kreme donut. Speaking of give back fundraisers, Krispy Kreme donut just kicked off for our DC trip this week. We had our subs, so you can wash those down this month with a greasy Krispy Kreme donut. The super subs went on this past month, and Kathy Snyder, again, a volunteer in our community who does a ton for us, coordinated that this year. So that was a great event. Really helped some kids. We ran out of tomatoes Sunday morning. So if you were in Hannaford looking for salsa ingredients, I think I took every tomato out of Hannaford on Sunday morning. But it was a great effort. We had a lot of money raised for our 8th graders. That was great. I also wanted to give you a quick update on today. We had a great day today. This morning, professional development at the middle school is very much team leader driven around technology and things that are happening in the building and just springboarding off of things. So just want to recognize our staff, recognize the leadership within our building for making it a very productive day. Just to give you a flavor of the day, we're piloting a web-based program called Discovery Ed. We had a Google Suite training. Khan Academy was mentioned. We're using that as a newer RTI intervention in our school. We did some work on, as you spoke of, Ms. Harrison, behavior and mental health stuff around critical incidents around that, special education alignment, content literacy planning, and vertical meetings with departments. So a lot of good stuff happening. And again, thank you to our staff and many within our building for providing some leadership on those things. So I'm going to talk about 2 things. I'm actually going to start with the interim assessment. Ms. Woodman just spoke of sort of the overview on what that looks like. And I've handed out sample questions for you in the past on SAS. So I'm not going to do that, but I just want to talk a little bit about logistically how that looks in our building. this is a great mid-year checkpoint for our kids. And because at the middle school, we, as you saw, we assess every student, grades 5, 6, 7, and 8 on the SAS summative in the spring. We mid-year right now for the interim are assessing students on all of those areas that were mentioned. So for 5th and 8th grade, we also have science in addition to reading and writing, so language arts and then the math areas. And the neat thing, a couple of quick neat observations so far is one, with the math, the results are instantaneous. So we get the results back right away. We also get the questions back right away. So whereas the summative, they don't always necessarily release all of the items. For the interim, we actually see exactly what the questions were the students took. They also give us a report of the percentage of correct and incorrect answers for each question. So we can literally go in there, see the question, and then look at percentages. That's great feedback, very helpful. For reading and writing, it takes a little bit longer to get the scores back. This is new to us, but it's about a week. And but then we also get all of those questions back. We get all of the passages that they read, the rubrics for the writing and all of that. So it really is it's very helpful for the teachers, I think, just to see what is required. From the standpoint of the students, because we are one-to-one, it's very efficient. The students can take it right on their Chromebook. They're in their classrooms. It works very well. The challenge has been around the timing, the timeline. The SAS recommended timeline was roughly 30 minutes per content area. Writing was an exception. They demand a little more time for the writing. What we're finding is it takes well over an hour to do each area. So the schedule that we had come up with originally, we've tweaked. And we've also made the decision that in some cases where students require more time, maybe they just take longer to take a test or have special needs, we are capping it at a certain period of time. And this is still sort of a work. We're in the middle of this right now. But with those students who don't necessarily finish every single question, we are going to, I'm talking to the state helpline. I think I'm probably the only one in the state calling the helpline right now. So they see my calls and they screen them, I think. But as far as
Storm
you know,
again.
they get their one call a month or one call a week.
The quota's filled.
I think I wake the guy up. Whoa, the phone's ringing. But we've been working with them to sort of figure out what is the best plan for a student. We don't want a student testing for 3 hours on an interim reading test. So we can let the test expire, and then we need to see what those results look like. I'll give you an update on that as we work through that with the test. But overall, it's been the staff has done a lot of work to make this work. Just logistically getting students logins and all of that. And I'll give you an update in March on sort of where this ends up as we go through the process. But we had some good work happening today just around some of the feedback we're already seeing, some of the questions and so forth there. The other item is Sweethearts and Heroes. It's not a reference to Martha and I, but it is a new, it is a program that we've been looking at through a couple of different prongs in our school: PBIS, our leadership team, guidance, and then I've been involved with all three of those groups and bringing this in. So they have a website. You can look at it. Sweethearts and Heroes. It's a team of three individuals who they go around the country and they do a big promotion on. The main core of their message is compassionate empathy, overcoming adversity, building hope, kindness, and leadership, turning a negative situation into a positive one, and providing tools to #change the world. So that's their message. They do use all of that to kind of come together to address various symptomatic issues that we see, certainly at the middle level, like bullying, the kindness, the way kids talk to each other, the way kids interact with each other. So we're always hesitant to go after a symptom. We really want to go after those core values that will make change in a student. And so we feel like, the ones I just listed, we feel like it will align to our core values. So the team that would come to the school would be two members. One, his name is Rick. He's a retired sergeant with the Army. He had a terrible accident when he was in Afghanistan. Basically, his face was entirely burned by an AED. And so he talks a lot about your inner characteristics, hope, and just how people perceive you on the outside and what those core values are on the inside, and how that really, in the end, is more important than all the other surface level type things. He's one speaker. And then the other guy is, my notes here. Well, he's a former UFC fighter, so there's some appeal to some of the students on that. But he also talks a lot about adversity, overcoming adversity. He has his own stories around that he brings in. So why Sweetheart and Heroes? I'm sure you're thinking there's a million programs probably similar to this. So first of all, there's a member of our community who, I'm not sure she wants me to name her tonight, so I'm not going to give a lot of information specifically, but she's been instrumental in bringing this to us, and we had a conference phone call, not just our district, but some other districts together with the leadership core of Sweethearts and Heroes. She actually came in for the conference call, along with a gentleman who helps fund this around the state because he so strongly believes in this. He lives in Bow. He brought it to the Bow district and the Concord district, both to the middle schools, and would do anything to bring it into a school district. So right now he's been working with us. Fortunately for us, I'm not sure funding is going to be the biggest challenge, because Ms. Woodman and I are working on some grant funding possibilities there, along with some partnership through our PTO, who's very interested in supporting this as well. So we had a conference call, all of us, to kind of what are the nuts and bolts and how does this thing work? It's a one-day assembly for grades 5 and 6 and grades 7 and 8, where they would have grades 7 and 8 would have an hour and a half assembly. Grade 5 and 6 about an hour assembly. We would plan to potentially use the auditorium at Campbell High School to do. We've done that in the past with some of our more serious kind of assemblies. On March 28th, that's our tentative date. The students would be bussed over to Campbell in the morning to see the presentation. And then the team is around the school all day. They do breakouts with kids in the afternoon. They do some processing and training with the staff in the afternoon after school. And then they do a parent presentation that evening. So we're looking at the 28th. I think this is it's a great community thing. It also touches on even some of the stuff you were talking about earlier, Tina, with just some of those issues that are important to families and community members. So I'll stop rambling. But as far as the general, references around the program, and I've talked to the principal at Bow Middle School. Can't say enough good things. Dave Hodgkins not only has supported the Bow and Concord programs, but also been to a number of other districts around our state. Even though it's a national program around our state, there's quite a bit of traction around it. So our plan is to bring it to our community on the 28th of March. There's a lot of planning to be done. But Lynn Ellis and Mary Cummings have done a lot of work already, and we've got a shared Google Doc. We're chipping away at things, and I want to make you aware of that and give you updates over the next couple of months on how that goes.
Great. Thank you. Anything from Ms. Leichleiter? Thank you very much. Susie.
Hi, everyone.
Mr. Lonigan.
Great. I want to sort of reiterate a little bit what Tom said just a moment ago with respect to today's professional development. Four of my teachers really did a super job covering 3 different topics. Nate Cooper did a nice presentation on using technology and how to assess whether or not the technology you're using is useful in terms of your lesson planning and your strategies to use this. And he had our teachers captivated for the better part of 20, 25 minutes, which was interesting because we had them scheduled for about 15. We also had Jackie Baudet, who's one of our case managers, and Ryan Keller do a terrific presentation with respect to special education, sort of case manager roles, para educators, and working with your paras in the classroom. And they really drove a very positive conversation for the teachers about the relationship between case managers and teachers and paraeducators and parents and how these dynamics work at Campbell High School, and some suggestions. And it was a really meaningful experience, because one of the questions we often get asked is, what's the model and how do we collaborate better? And this is just a really nice chance to sort of open up the conversations, get people being somewhat more positive about the relationships between the groups and how we can assist each other. So that was really strong. And then we had Sean Conley, one of our newer math teachers, who's taken over the assessment and data committee, and discuss how we want to use the SAT and the PSAT scores, and looking for help from them, and then soliciting from them, how do you see us using data at Campbell High School? So it just continues a little bit of that conversation that Mary was mentioning previously. So I just wanted to touch on that. There were two that we did not get to, and Mary, we didn't get to our work study practices today. So I'll talk with you about that later. I do want to mention a couple of recognitions which are in my report, but I always like to mention our student of the month and our star of the month. So Emily Coughlin is this really great kid who helped Jody with the St. Paul's presentation for the juniors back in the fall, and she just did a terrific job. And Junior Demi Dion is our star of the month, key leader for FIRST Robotics, and just a student who's willing to help anybody in the building and assist with things. So those two are really terrific. I also want to mention that Jeff Parsons was our Golden Bell Award winner. He's one of our 3 counselors. Jeff is a guy who will just do anything for students. He will do anything for staff. He's one of the kindest people I've ever met. And his work, both on behalf of students and on behalf of the counseling department, has really just been exceptional. So it was nice to see him get that. As far as the 2 things I'd like to talk about, we're knee deep in one of them, which is the course selection process. This begins, as you know, with the program of studies. So in the fall, Jody and I meet, and we start talking about what we're looking at going into the next school year. We met with Mary, and we met with the curriculum facilitators and the individual contributors to discuss what courses. You guys clearly, you approved the program of studies, understanding what the new courses were. And that sort of sets the groundwork. We actually don't print the program of studies for anybody but for the 8th grade students now. The 8th grade students actually get a hard copy, and it's electronic for the rest of the students in the school.
It's right on my counter.
Is it?
Mhm.
There it is. Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's a little piece of that sort of cutting down the waste. And also with the kids, they're tech natives. They can handle going onto the website and finding the courses and doing those things. We started a new tradition this year with respect to an electives fair. Haven't done that previously. So what we did was we gave the teachers the opportunity by departments to establish themselves in the first floor hallway. And for the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, we rotated them through the main hallway so that they could have a chance to talk with teachers about the various courses that they don't have to take. We've learned a few things. It was really congested, and we need to spread our teachers out more because they clogged up right in front of the cafeteria and stood there, and I was yelling like a madman trying to move them along. But what I wanted to do is I wanted teachers to have the opportunity to solicit kids, hey, check this out. Particularly when you're looking at a teacher who teaches sophomores or juniors who may not have seen a student in a year or two, to have that opportunity to say, I remember you freshman year from music. Why aren't you coming back? So we did have the drums out there in the hallway, but it was a nice opportunity to give them a chance to sort of think about some of those other options. We then are in the process right now of the students meeting with the counselors in classes. So the 9th graders are meeting with the counselors next Monday. They're going to go into the physical education courses and the Algebra 1 courses. Meet with the students, discuss what their options are, point out the electives, and do those things. But that won't include all of the freshmen. So they're going to bring some small groups of freshmen up into the counseling offices and meet with them to discuss what the options are for them as well. For the 10th grade students, they went in Monday to the World Humanities classes and had a chance to talk with all of the 10th grade students. So they're all set at this point. And then for the juniors, the counselors actually meet individually with every one of those students for two reasons. One is that you're concerned about their senior year courses and making sure they're selecting the right ones. The second one is to make sure that they're thinking about what their options are at the end of their senior year and begin that sort of post-Campbell High School sort of process of college or two-year schools or looking at the military or what those other things are. So that's why the one-on-one meetings take place. As far as the middle school, our counselors are going down there on February 14th. But a lot of the groundwork of the middle school is done by the teachers meeting with the kids and talking about what those options are and moving those things forward. Ultimately, what's going to happen is on March 15th is when Jody and I meet with the teachers and we begin to look at, okay, what are the numbers for courses? And what are the available classes that we really are going to be teaching? And it moves forward from there, conversation with Mary, a conversation with Mike, because we now have to talk about teacher assignments and caseload and course load and those types of things. So that'll continue all the way through April, probably into May. The hope is we can have at the end of the May sort of process settle, most of the kinks ironed out. And that's a really important process between Jody, me, and Andrea Stern in particular, because we'll run a schedule and then, an hour and a half later, all of a sudden we're looking at, oh boy, we've dropped, all of our math options here because we made, so it's a constant, tweaking, moving things around, switching people through. And it also has to take into consideration some of the part-time teachers who you're looking to keep at certain times, and Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and some of those other things. The hope is for kids to have their schedules before they leave at the end of the school year, and for teachers to have a sense of what are the sections they're going to be teaching with the various classes that they're going to be teaching. And we've been fortunate. Jody's, I will tell you, she's the key to this. She's done a terrific job of managing the process, and we've been able to get teachers at least a sense of what are the 5 classes that they're going to be teaching, and students, what are their courses, what's their schedule going to look like. So that's the hope as we move this thing forward. It's a pretty intense time. It's a pretty busy time, but I also like the work. It requires a lot of thinking and sort of, putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So just wanted you to be aware of that. As far as recycling, I don't have that in my report, but I wanted to talk about where we are. It's kind of a messy situation with respect to paper recycling. And if you're following what's happened with China, they've stopped recycling paper. It's caused significant problems nationally. It also caused a problem for us because our paper recycler went out of business, surprisingly, sort of out of the blue. All of a sudden we found out we couldn't get paper picked up anymore. So we have, this was really difficult, and it caused me some real challenges with Jill Deloria, who was at the middle school during the recycling. When she saw that I sent out an email saying, hey, right now we're throwing out paper, we don't have a process, we don't have a recycler. She came to me right away, what's wrong, you're giving in. The challenge is we don't have places to store anything. It's cluttering up the recycling closet. It's making it difficult to access and to get to things. And we don't have a solution right now. And I think the unfortunate piece for me is that we're spending a lot of money now to dump paper waste out into the trash. And I don't know if anybody knows any recyclers who might have, I talked with there's a gentleman who works for Coca-Cola who manages their recycling, and he's very connected to the NRA. And he was saying that he had heard that one of the old trash to energy incinerators on the western part of the state was looking at opening up again to burn paper to turn it to energy. However, he didn't know any specifics. There was no definite timeline, nothing like that. So right now, going through the end of the year, and I'm sure you may have seen that down at the middle school, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just not productive. So we're still doing the plastic, we're still doing metal, but it's not a good situation given what we want to do. The interesting piece from a sort of curriculum standpoint is we originally had somewhere around 8 to 10 students in the recycling class. With the second semester and the shifting of schedules, it actually switched down to 3 students. However, those 3 students can manage the metal and the plastic and those recycling things without a whole lot of difficulty. So I
Be a
just,
senior project, bringing it to the landfill,
Yes.
well,
Right.
collecting the paper and.
So I wonder
That's a
too,
liability as
with
far as
the-
driving.
The expansion of the one-to-one program, I know we can't get rid of all paper.
yes.
But have you seen a reduction in printing and copying and that sort of
Yes,
thing?
yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. And some of the paper is not generated internally, it's generated outside
Right.
and comes
Comes
into the
in.
school as well. Yeah, yep. And no, I think overall, I think it's probably down from what it was, but I don't have a whole lot of experience with,
Mhm.
you know, and we're relatively new in the one-to-one program, so.
Is that one of your collection bins out from the school? Paper?
Paper, I'm sorry.
Do you have a bin, a collection
Every
bin?
classroom has bins.
No, outside.
Outside,
Isn't that one of them that's near all the cans? Tom, what do you have at your school? Because I was gonna bring that up anyway.
For paper, we just have recycling. We have the green recycling bins.
Okay.
And for
And
cans,
so-
they have separate bins. We don't really have many cans. It's more the
What's
bottles.
in the front of the school? What bin is in front of the school? Yellow
one. They have a,
No, it's not close.
And then there's like.
It's either cardboard or paper.
Cardboard.
there's a bin for, paper
Paper
out there.
retriever.
And then
Outside,
there's I guess it's, the one out in the parking lot, or
Yeah.
you mean in the foyer? Yeah,
Outside.
that's for paper.
Paper.
Yeah.
So you actually have 2 of them, correct? Because I remember talking about this the last time. You have
I
one in
know.
the back
We have-
too.
We have, I can't remember off the top of my head. One of them is definitely paper only. I guess the other one must be cardboard.
cardboard.
Okay.
I'd have to look at it.
I know I talked about as far as getting those out of the front of the building, and then I noticed the other day that you have 2 of them, one in the back, one in the front.
Well, one of them's going to go away because they're not. That paper retriever is going to go.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You have the same thing, don't you?
We have a cardboard.
It's cardboard. No, not shed. Again, like a dumpster bin.
We have a dumpster. Oh, back on. at the
Nope,
landing
not up
block?
back. As you're leaving on the right-hand side, where that trailer of tin cans is.
Yep.
And you got a it's seriously like, it looks like the dump over there.
Oh,
Clothing
correct.
one, and there's another one.
I
I think the other one's
believe
paper.
you, but I don't.
Okay.
I think it looks better that they did a little landscaping around it. I think it looks better than it did.
Look even better if we get rid of the bins.
And we're complaining about that when we have bins in front of GMS on the main drag on our town.
We're working on it. GMS though is in a different situation. It's kind of hard to like hide those. Put it in the 30 building.
One of ours is the clothing bin. That's the one you referenced.
Yeah, I know one's a
The other
clothing
one
bin.
next to it, Right.
It's paper, I think.
Well, then it's probably the same circumstance as his, which is the full.
I think Thomas too.
Right. Is Jill taking?
Front and back. I mean, you get them coming and going.
A lot of garbage.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. The yellow one's going to go though, because that one's out of business. That paper retriever's
They're both
going
yellow.
to go. The other one's green.
In the back?
I thought they were.
No, the one in the front next to the.
No, I know there's 2 in the front, but there's 1 in the back. As you're going towards for kid pickup or
On the
drop off,
left, there's the regular dumpster.
right when you turn left on the right-hand side is another bin.
A dumpster bin?
Mhm.
Yellow.
Mhm.
I'll have to take a look.
I didn't.
Someone dropped that today.
Must have been. It's there.
We have no place to put it in.
Yeah.
The dumpster, if the dumpster's there, which I'm assuming, you're telling me it is, it's gonna go away at some point.
Good for the art department, paper mache. All right. Anything from Mr. Lonigan?
Oh, I had a question. At the bottom of your report, there's a coffee with administration coming up.
Yep.
It says 6 o'clock. I'm hoping it's PM.
It is.
Okay.
Oh, it doesn't say on there? Did I leave the 8 PM on? there?
Yes.
Yeah,
I was
it
like,
is. And
6
that's
a.m.
the-
is
that's the
really
eighth grade-
early.
That's the 8th grade parent night, which the 8th grade parent night starts at 8:30.
Oh, it's at the same time. I
So
see.
it's just, 6:30, so it's just before that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we also, for that, just since you brought it up, we also are gonna have student organizations out front there, just recruiting the 8th graders coming in. First Robotics is gonna do an open house that night as well, so.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Folks are free to leave if you'd like to head out.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll text you on the way.
Let me know if it's freezing rain out there.
I heard just a moment ago it's just rain, so.
Okay, I'll take this rain.
29% on the snow predictor.
Yeah.
29.
29% means.
Bill.
Someone put 29% and then someone put 0% because it's challenge day.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's right. That's tomorrow.
No, I know. I may have another one. That's why. I'll let them know. But I'm hoping that's not the case, but it may be.
Oh, Mary,
Too bad.
you pass that.
She's in.
She's making live to learn shirts also. So live to learn shirts.
She's also a
snappy
snappy
dresser.
dresser.
You're falling asleep.
In stereo.
Live to learn shirts too.
Oh.
So, yeah,
Sweet.
large.
Hashtag.
She is a snappy dresser. I
I
know.
have to cut them
Short.
Roll it on.
Yep.
Dining service reimbursement.
So I'll go very quickly. So dining services, if you look at the report, what I've asked Michelle to do is to put this on at the principal meeting. So the second meeting of the month, we will have first meeting of the month, sorry, we will have the update from the dining services. So again, the numbers continue to be positive. And I think the number to focus on, you can look at all the charts and numbers, but at the very bottom, we did additional meals served per day. So we simply are dividing out by the number of days that month. And you can see there's an upward trend here. So it's positive.
She was impressive. We'll get the tour.
Yes.
Yeah.
She knows her stuff.
She does.
Is really working hard to make it work.
Yeah.
So
That was evident. She talked when I had lunch with her and Corey, she talked a lot about the exciting, she just lights up when she's talking about
Enthusiastic,
lunches
absolutely.
and what she wants to do and the progress that they're going to continue to make. It's inspiring. It's really
Yes.
great.
I really like the fact that she really cared about what the kids thought about the food. It
Yeah.
wasn't just getting the food out there. It was
Yeah.
finding what they
And I was happy to see February's schedule come out before February 2nd or 3rd. So it was nice.
and I want to thank the board because I know people took time from your busy days to come and have the conversation with Lauren. So I think that really worked out well and got you to see exactly what's happening. So
And taste.
and taste it. That's right.
Is she fully staffed now, or how's that going?
believe so.
I think we are there. Yeah, I'm looking at Corey, but I think we are fully staffed.
Fabulous.
And that's going to, so the other positive, it allows her to actually spend time as director and she's not pitching in to help cover. So it's really, that's another huge point to make.
Yeah.
Enrollment report. So we'll also have that at the beginning of each month. And if you look at the format, it's a format that we've been following. So we are up 4 students.
Yep.
And it's really,
Kindergarten? Assuming it was in kindergarten.
it's
first
actually,
grade?
now wait a second. Yes, because it's 3 in kindergarten and 1 in pre-K at GMS. LMS was actually up 2 and CHS was down 2, so they kind of balance each
Bounced
other
out.
out.
Okay.
Mike, I would just look at if we stabilize around 90, is that going to end up impacting offerings at CHS eventually, or do you picture that being?
Ask me that again. 90, which
Like if
number?
we stabilize at 90, say going forward, we're between 87 and 92.
Yep.
And looking at CHS now, they're over 100 and everything. So once we see that across the board at 90, will that start impacting programming at CHS or?
It will when the 5th, 6th grade classes start moving.
I'm just saying, if we look at this 3 years from now and it's 90 across the board.
Yes. So that would have a dip at CHS, and that does impact your program. There's no doubt about it. So your elective programs, you're just able to run fewer sections of things, and depending on how that ripples across requests from students, it has an impact.
And the only reason I pointed out, I don't know where I'll be in 3 years or not, boy, it just, if we get smaller, I just encourage us to look at trimesters again to allow that opportunity if we have to contract a little bit.
How do you mean? Can you expand on that a
When you go
little?
to, it just, being from a district about this size and seeing shrinking, we went to trimesters maybe 8 or 9 years ago.
Mhm.
What it allows you to do, you get 3 into every year, 3 trimesters instead of 2.
Mhm.
Your 60 days for the same
Okay.
academics. If you have struggling learners, it gives them that much more time to catch up. But B, it allows kids, if the district gets smaller, if it's shrink accordingly.
Mhm.
Now the teachers are teaching 3 trimesters instead of 2 semesters.
Mhm.
That allows for more academics to be
More flexibility.
more
Interesting.
flexibility in the program.
Yeah.
Just seeing, looking at that, that worries me a little bit with semesters. If we could try. Is that that would be a negotiation thing, right? If you-
Not necessarily, because the contract just speaks to the number that they're teaching at a time. And so that really increases what they teach over the course of the year, right? Or adjusts that. But as long as they have the 5 courses at a given time. I'd have to look more, I don't know a lot about the trimester system.
It's just one of those things I've been seeing every time I look at this, like,
Yeah.
how do we keep the offerings?
Right. That's an interesting take on it.
I think if,
It's a ways off too, so.
Yeah.
and if we look at the numbers at the very bottom, so the kindergarten registration is at 42. So that's a little behind what we think we're going to land at.
Scott said earlier, though, I was talking to him, and he said it's basically where they were last year also. It was a slow start.
It was like 42, 45.
Yeah, he said it was a slow start, the same way as last year.
But the first grade numbers are already at 87. So,
Yeah.
so I think it's wise that we have planned on the 5 in first grade again, and also the 5 in kindergarten, assuming that it reaches up there. So, all right. So those are your enrollment numbers, and brings us to
Corey in this audit letter.
Yeah, the audit letter, that's the from Plaza and Sanderson, direct communication to the board, just giving you an idea of what, how the audit went and if there's any recommendations. And then, of course, it gave you each all a hard copy of the audit. There's a digital copy as well. So that's now officially issued, and we're good to go into next year.
It's all pretty straightforward too.
Yeah.
It's like. Does anyone have any questions about the audit?
And Corey, if I may, when we publish the district annual report, that'll be included. The info from that'll be
From the audit,
is the audit in there? What is it that Barbara included?
there's pieces of, there's certain statements that she'll include. She won't include the entire thing. The
Yep.
notes are just if somebody wants a little extra. So,
But to see the statements, that's where
Yep.
the public history. Yep.
We also have the manifest. Public input, having no public. We'll go into non-public. Session RSA 91-A:311. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him unless the employee affected, 1, has a right to a meeting, and 2, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. The hiring of any person or public employee, matters which if discussed in public would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Starting to freeze and ice out.